For the upcoming right-hander, brake 30 meters later and ease off the pressure.
Are you spending a lot of time looking for setups and struggling for faster lap times? Are you tired of searching online for answers? Would you like to get setups, analysis and tutorials from some of the best sim racers in the world like Ralph Alla, Mitchell de Jong, Martin Krunker, Josh Rogers and many more? If so, virtualracingschool.com is the answer you've been looking for. VRS data packs provide hot laps from our professional coaches for you to analyse and replicate. They provide tutorials that walk you through the fastest laps and what the pros did to achieve the best times. And they provide the setups you need to ensure your car is competitive in both oval and road racing. If you're ready to get faster and reach more podiums sooner than later, just go to virtualracingschool.com and sign up for a free account today.
Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to the season finale of the Evolution Sim Racing GT3 Championship Season 8 as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing and powered by Trophy AI. That's right ladies and gentlemen, we're in round 10 of 10 for the 8th rendition of the GT3 Championship and goodness me what a story it has been. All the way around the globe we have gone and we have made our way from America to the European continent all the way to the Pacific and back and we are here today in Italy to bring it all to a close at the one and only old school Italian tempo of speed. You know it and you love it. It is none other than the Autodrome Nazionale Monza. With it, it's 3.6 mile layout, it's Grand Prix circuit, and this is where the scores will be settled. Indeed, after today, we'll be bringing the curtain down on all of our racing for this championship season, and it has been a season to be remembered for so many special moments and highlights throughout. Indeed, we'd need an entire series of videos in order to be able to bring you those highlights, but instead we have to settle for all of our previous broadcasts. But as we come into today, you'll be catching all of the racing action from Split B live as it unfolds, and as it unfolds on the circuit side, we've still got plenty of questions to be answered. In the Premier Championship, well, things have been settled after round number 9, with Ricardo Luiz Pereira taking the crown with a round to spare after a brilliant set of results at Imola last time out. But we still have the big question of who's going to finish second. Will it be Christopher Starsmore? Will it be Mathew Croft? Or will it be late charger Nick Stubbe, who had an absolutely fashionable day at Imola last time out? And in the Evo class, we've got plenty of questions to be answered, and none more so than at the very top. Will it be Wesley Van Rens who takes home the crown, or can Grant Miller rise from the ashes like the Phoenix after a dismal day last round? Or could we even see the rise in charge of Andre Montine suddenly surprise everybody and sweep it away? Those questions and plenty more we're going to find out as we see the racing unfold tonight, and we welcome you to this live broadcast from Circuit Side on YouTube at youtube.com, and you can search for Evolution Sim Racing and tune in there. Much like in the YouTube chat we already have, and say hello to Katie Kitty Eames, also to Berry Racing, also there to Barbara Rubino, who's cheering on brother Steve Rubino, and also to Laura Jane, who'll be cheering on James Howarth. But good evening to you, and I hope you're all doing well, and as we're all set and ready to go, in the content booth you have myself, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I'll be bringing you all your racing action tonight. Indeed, what a season it has been, and well, goodness me, it feels sad to be saying that this is the end of the season after today, but still, that's the way it goes. But without further ado, you know the story. This is going to be a round to be remembered, and let's tell you the story so far as we head into this round. Well, as we can see then going into tonight, it is the 5th of June. We have made our way all the way from the pre-season opener in Austria at the Red Bull Grand Prix circuit, then to the United States for Watkins Glen, then to Portugal for Portimao, then to Italy for Mugello, then back to America for Road America, and staying there for the circuit of the Americas, plus also Road Atlanta, and then it was round number 7 at Le Mans, where we made our way back to the United States again for Sebring, and then we headed to Italy. Plenty of air miles being accrued there, and indeed the reason why we said going to the Pacific, because we flew over the Pacific from a couple of rounds previous ago, but we've made our way to Italy. And last time out on the 29th of May, well, it was all about the sprint races in some absolutely inclement conditions, and all of our drivers there, well, they had to absolutely tackle what was the nightmare of Imola. Indeed, the chicanes, the straights, the heavy rain, many ended up in the wall, many ended up on the grass, but those who didn't, they came away victorious. victorious. And here we are then for our season finale. 2 30-minute sprint races. It's a sprint doubleheader. And, well, it is the Monza Grand Prix circuit that plays host in sunny conditions as well. No sign of rain on the horizon. Only a little bit of cloud to break up the sun. But otherwise, it's going to be red hot. And we're not just talking about those brakes for our drives, but also the racing tarmac. But that's the calendar. But you want to know exactly how the points stand coming into this round. And let's give you a little bit of an update there. So we start off with the Premier Drivers' Championship standings. And after 9 rounds, as you can see there, on 688 points, Ricardo Luiz Pereira has taken the crown for Vulcan Motorsport Silver. And last time out in Imola, it was his first ever sprint race win of the season. Indeed, it's crazy to think that our Portuguese champion-elect has taken every feature race round win, but he had not taken a sprint race win until the second of the races at Imola last time out. But meanwhile, he also picked up a second place, matching his previous best results in terms of being on the podium in sprint races, which you'd have to wind all the way back to much earlier in the season in round number 3 of the championship to see that happen. And indeed, only 3 podiums in sprint races this season for our champion, and last time out a second and a first. So with 688 points going the way of Ricardo Luiz Pereira, who absolutely dominated the second race of the day, falling behind Nick Stubbe in the first, well then there comes the question, who's going to be second? Will it be Christopher Starsmore on 560 points, or will it be Mathew Croft 31 points behind? It was 2 very different stories for both of those drives. For Starsmore in the Ferrari 296, it was a struggle, but he survived and got the points on the board with 2 8th place finishes. For Croft, meanwhile, it was a nightmare day of a 6th place in the first race at Imola, not too shabby. However, in the second race, it all fell apart with multiple incidents and a big shunt in the end of retiring his car from the race as Adex's Sim Sports. And what it's done is it's opened up a door, because look who's in 4th. It is Nick Stubbe for Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing. And with a win in the first sprint race at Imola, matching some of his previous performances with the fact he has 3 sprint race wins to his name this season, and also a second place in the second race a day, and there's absolutely torrid conditions. Well, right now, could he spring a surprise, because he is 50 points off of Starsmore? In theory, he could overhaul him and indeed bring home that run-out spot, but he's got to go some, and he's going to give it his all. In his own words, when we spoke to him after the racing at Imola. In 5th, you have John Ludbrook on 413 points for Carme GP2 Porsche. He's going to be looking to try and finish inside the top 5, and he's looking very comfortable to do so, unless Peter Duke brings a surprise for DDK Racing Team P. James Howarth, 6th and 7th for DXT Motorsports. And in a nightmare day at the Imola circuit, the Mustang drivers up and down the grid, it didn't matter if they were in Premier or Evo, as we'll talk a little bit more about shortly, they all struggled, and Howarth embodying that, falling to 7th place. He's only 13 points ahead of James Bostock for Carme GP2 Porsche, who we expect to be back on the grid today after missing the previous round of racing. And then you do have his teammate Scott Kostrich, and then Nifels at Glass Tech Racing's Jan Osberg completing the top 10. And well, in a little bit of drama coming into this round, Jan Osberg turned up to the gate with the team, but unfortunately the stewards at Imola said he wasn't eligible to get into the circuit, and well, thankfully he has been able to get in. They reviewed his pass, and it was a little bit of a clerical error, so we are going to be seeing our smiling Swede on the grid today, but there was a little bit of drama there with regards to getting him on the circuit, and in reality he wasn't quite able to get into the iRacing lobby we were hosting, but we were able to fix that, but we thought we'd dramatise it a little bit there. But Osberg, definitely the man to watch out for, in the fact he had some great performances earlier on in the season, but he's had a lot of bad luck, and he's hoping that bad luck goes away today. Robin Aston sits in 11th for Sima GP2 Porsche, and Vincent Loader completes your top 12. And well, he wasn't on the grid last time out, but he's back today and looking to try and follow up with some extra wins after his fantastic performances, his double win at the Le Mans circuit. Indeed, he has been the Sprint Supremo. And then coming on to the Evo class. Well, here in the second of our 2 classes, Wesley Van Rens now leading the way on 595 points. There's just one issue. He's only 35 points ahead of Andre Montine, and the story between them, well, for Van Rens, it was all about damage limitation in the first race of the day, and in race number 2, it was completely unpredictable at Imola, and in the end, he was able to surprise everybody by finishing to 4th with an absolutely solid drive, despite having some early difficulties. Montine, meanwhile, well, he had a rather moderate or mild race number 1 at Imola, but race number 2, it all came together, and he had a brilliant battle with Road Turf Courier to make sure he finished in second place. The two of them absolutely going toe-to-toe at Imola, but in the end, we did see the Romanian driver in the Honda bring it on home, or the Acura, I should say, to give it its proper title. Then Grant Miller, well, he's fallen to 3rd for Phoenix Racing, but he's been down there before. He had a DNF in the second of the races at Imola. In the first one, it was a 10th place finish. The Mustang's just not going anywhere with the absolute viscosity of the rain. Therefore, right now, he's got to try and find a way to bounce back, but he's not been out of his depth anytime this season, and he'll be hoping for plenty more in this round. From him, in Road Turf Courier, we have a 4th place there in for the MJK Sim Racing B driver, and well, right now, he'll be looking to try and finish as high as possible and as close as possible to the top 3, but he can't usurp our championship leader, so therefore, the best he can theoretically do is finish P2. Rob Craig sits in 5th for Moonshiners Racing Club, and what a round it was for our 5th place driver, taking his first win of the season second in class in the second of the 2 sprint races at Imola. It was an absolutely superb drive. He was faultless to a T, and he just ran away to victory after that 4th place in race number 1, or what was 15th place on the overall grid. Saw him inherit the reverse grid pole position. Steve Rubino, also one to watch out for, but he wasn't at Imola, given the fact it went very wrong. Much like with Grant Miller, the Mustang driver struggling, so the Hobo Racing driver will be looking to bounce back today and end his season on a high, and potentially swipe away that 5th place from Rob Gregg, with Daniel Paul there in 7th for Flatline Racing, ahead of DXT Motorsports' Owen Seward, and Sean Clark and Jan Nuggie complete your top 10. Outside the top 10, Charlie Stoffard sits in 11th, and well, he was the winner in the first of the 2 sprint races at Imola, but in the second race, it all went wrong, and it was an unfortunate retirement for the McLaren 720 Evo driver for Team Kaxar, who's also picked up a qualifying ban coming into today, so you won't see him out there for qualifying, and he'll be starting from the very back of the grid. He'll be starting from the pit lane, if you will, going into race number 1. And Gareth Newton there for Karma GP2 Porsche. He completes the standings on 269, or at least the top 12. But that is how the drivers sit. What about the Teams Championship? Well, let's go through it quickly. And in the Teams Championship, it's all to play for at the very top. 17 points separates RDSA Esports, who've returned to the top after falling from it after round number 8, but they've made their way back up there. And then Vulcan Motorsports Gold continue to rise up through the ranks. They're now into second, and they're almost there to take the lead. They have yet to lead the Teams Championship this season. Could they swing it in their favour right at the close? And if so, that would be incredible. In fact, I think that might be one of a very limited number of times in the Teams Championships over our extensive history at Evolution Sim Racing, where we've seen the winning team not lead the championship until the final checkered flag. They say it can't be done, but they're looking to prove otherwise. ZX's Sim Sports also be looking to try and nip things in the bud there. They fall into third, but they're not too far behind. And with only 30 points separating the top 3, it's all to play for. Racing League Hub sitting 4th. They're on 1,131 points, just ahead of Vulcan Fastest by Glass Tech Racing. And then you've got a sizable gap to the second half of the top 10, with Karma GP2 Porsche leading the way, but they've got the pressure of Phoenix Racing and also Vulcan Motorsport Silver. In the fight for 9th is Simcast Racing UK, ahead of Moonshiners Racing Club, only 11 points between the 2 teams. And then outside the top 10, let's not forget about them, Suma GP2 Porsche. They're not on screen, but they're on 813 points and trying to steal back their place inside the top 10 right at the end of the race in this season. We're coming onto our circuit then. Well, of course, it's the Monza Grand Prix circuit. It is a household name, if you will, around the world. Located near the city of Monza, which is only 6 miles north, I do believe, of the much larger and in fact more renowned city, if you will, of the Milan city in the Lombardy region of Italy. Spanning 3.6 miles or 5.79 kilometres, depending on your nomenclature and preference of units, and consisting of 11 corners. It is a circuit that has an absolutely vast reputation. Having opened in 1922, it is arguably one of the oldest circuits around the world, if not on the European continent, and I do believe cited as the 3rd oldest permanent road racing course in the world. Its layout has changed over the years, and it's gone from its oval layout to its much more preferable Grand Prix layout, albeit the oval has been resurfaced in the last couple of decades, but rarely used. But the key thing about this circuit is it is as old school as they come. Long straights, heavy braking zones, and within those braking zones and those corner sequences, tight chicanes or sweepers all moulded together, and that means it's all about being late on the brakes and early on the throttle, and top speed is key if you want to see victory, and that's what other drivers will be gunning for today, no questions asked. But without further ado, enough rules, regulations, circuit story. Well, we're giving you all the update there with regards to where we are coming into this round, but the most important thing is we need to be circuit side and see our drivers out on circuit. And well, right now, the fastest man out there, much like we saw earlier in the season at Le Mans, albeit there it was tricky conditions, and here today, right now, it's absolutely stable conditions. It's Vincent Aluda as he makes his way down the start-finish line, and as he does, 1 minute 47.252 is the benchmark he set for everybody to beat. However, remember, practice times are not a true indicator of what could be coming on the horizon there. As our overlay refreshes itself, we did have a little bit of a graphical error there you may have noticed in the background, but we must say a big thank you to our broadcast software provider there, STK Gaming, and well, as we do see Loader making his way out to 2 and in towards 3, well, could he prove himself to be the man to beat once again? Indeed, he has a habit of this. When he's on his stride, nobody can quite touch him or has to tuck in close behind him. But as he makes his way in towards the second of the 2 chicanes, well, he's going to be thinking about the field, trying to chase him down, but perhaps more prevalently, what's going on in the Evo class. Well, Grant Miller right now, remember, he needs a special round today. He's 3rd in the Evo Class Championship going into tonight. Well, right now he is looking very special in the Ford Mustang, and arguably this is where he should shine. The Mustang with its 5-litre V8 engine, that American horsepower, will feel very comfortable on the straights. It is a car made for extended straights, acceleration zones, albeit it's a very stable car as well, and that's going to bode well through the chicanes, none more so than Ascari. It turns 8, 9 and 10, the medium speed chicane, and this has Grant Miller's name stamped all over it. However, he can't take anything for granted. He will need his rivals to drop key points, and with speaking of his rivals, well, Wesley Van Rens in the Ferrari 296, keep in mind he's currently second in this practice session. He's your championship leader, and the Ferrari 296, it doesn't have the acceleration, but it has one secret weapon if the driver gears the car for it, and that is top end speed. It struggles in 6th gear to get up to speed, but in the slipstream it picks up a huge amount of speed, and that's where we could see the Ferraris do very well today, whereas our handling cars such as the Porsches may find themselves a little bit on the back foot. But without further ado then, ladies and gentlemen, practice is complete, and well, practice makes perfect in one regard, but what also makes perfect is a brilliant qualifying lap. It's time to enter qualifying and find out who's going to be on pole for our first of our 2 races in this season finale. Alrighty then, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, qualifying gets underway. It is 15 minutes. It's go, go, go. Albeit the circuit quiet at the moment, but it won't be quiet for long, and we head into this closed qualifying session. For the uninitiated, what is a closed qualifying session, I hear you ask? Well, unlike normal qualifying sessions where you'll see every car out on circuit, closed qualifying is where every driver takes an isolated instance of the circuit. So we see James Howarth here making his way on out in the Ford Mustang, and I can promise you, I'm not just shining the camera on Ford Mustangs all the way through, in the fact that it just happens to be the first car coming out of the pit lane there, and we will show you some different machinery shortly. But everyone has an isolated instant circuit available to them, so nobody's tripping over each other, and nobody is playing the slipstream shenanigans that you typically see with racing here at Monza, none more so than perhaps in more recent Formula 1 Grand Prix over the last decade. So everyone's expected to put on their Sunday best in terms of their setups and performance and get out there and give it their all. And as Howarth makes his way down towards turns 4, 5, or into the left and right there of the Regia chicane, looking smooth there, but remember this is an outlap, and he has got this outlap plus 4 flying laps to get the job done within 15 minutes, whichever expires first. Now, in terms of the form here, we are expecting the Ford Mustang and also the Mercedes AMG Evo machines to be the strongest cars on a single lap round here, with no tow and no other considerations. Don't forget the Corvette Z06 GT3R, as we do see one here in the capable hands of Sander Tabbers, and well, we do love seeing this Corvette machine out there. Not a popular machine for this season, and well, Sander has definitely tried to make it work, fish inside the top 10 on a number of occasions there, and he's had some standout performances. Could he see some surprises with 6.2 litre V8 engine? And well, as he makes his way in towards the second of 2 Lesmos, turn at number 7 there, and onto the Seraglio curve or Seraglio straight. Well, right now he's going to be hoping that today could be his day to shine. So the form factor will be the Mustang and also the Mercedes. At the other end, well, we do talk about the Porsche, and the Porsche being typically a handling preference car in terms of it's a very technical car. As we see John Lubret there crawling along the rundown Seraglio. Perhaps he's just trying to give himself a bit of fuel burn or trying to fix something on the car. But he won't be able to be lackadaisical for too long, because otherwise he will be deemed to be abusing qualifying rules, and therefore the automated iRacing shielding system will give him a black flag, so he's got to pick up the pace. But with the Porsches being more handling focused, they can go for top speed, but they will have to sacrifice all the rear wing on the car in order to do so, and therefore that makes it a pretty unstable car on that rear end, given the fact it's rear engine rear wheel drive, which is where you want the engine to be. You want it to be right over the rear axle, so it gives you the greatest possible performance on corner turning and corner exits, so long as you're good at feathering the throttle. But when you take the rear wing away, and our drivers will be taking the rear wings down as much as possible to get the maximum top speed, you make the rear of the car very unbalanced. And in doing so, it means through medium speed corners, such as the Lesmos and also Ascari, you can start to feel that rear slide loose perhaps a little bit more than you normally would. But as he makes his way along there, we do say hello to Bruma Gaming, who's showing on Wesley Van Rens. Also, we do say hello there to, I believe, well, we said hello to Berry Racing and Barbara Rubino earlier on. We'll say hello to Stephen Wilkinson, who's cheering on Team Simcast Racing UK. And speaking of the team, can we see one of them out there at the moment? And the short answer is not quite. We are trying to find one of them at the moment who's out there. And in fact, there's Matthew Hunter in the green machine as he romps his way through the left and in towards the right of Regia, and onwards he goes. And as he does so now, coming down towards the braking zone for Lesmo 1, well, the lovely Ferrari there, and Hunter in the Evo class. And he's had a positive season, no doubt about it. He's looking to try and cap it with a high. Well, with Simcast Racing UK having a difficult time last time out at Imola. Indeed, many of the team being caught out by one corner in particular, the Alta Chicane, where the grass seemed to beckon Simcast Racing UK Ferraris more than anybody else. And some would say that even today, while the Ferrari 296 is buried there and gradually being submerged by the weeds. But joking aside, it just was an odd day for the team. They couldn't seem to quite get things to click together, none more so than Christopher Starsmore, albeit he did have those 2 8th place finishes, but I think he was hoping for a lot more. And speaking of Starsmore, there he is in the number 110 as he roars his way now to the end of his first flying lap, and all these lap times, they won't be truly indicative, they really will be bankers, because you want all the fuel out the car as you roar your way around here and down towards turn 1 and also at turn number 4, just to give you 2 sections along straight as examples. But he heads on down there. Is that an Italian flag I've noticed on the front of the Simcast Racing UK Ferrari? Noticing now on the front bumper underneath the bonnet the fact they have gone for the green, white and red flag. Well, if so, that's going to be a little bit of Tifosi spirit there, but the Tifosi won't be too happy about Starsmore touching the gravel, as that's going to invalidate his lap, but that shows you how hard he's pushing, and mounting those sausage curbs there, just ejecting the car out slightly with some understeer, and he'll be looking to get it back together in due course. But as he charges onwards, we also look to Rob McKee here, who is in the BMW M4, so he's changed cars by looks of things, unless my memory's getting a little bit foggy, but I swear he was in the McLaren earlier on this season, so this could be a sign of him swapping cars, taking a points penalty, knowing that he's got nothing to lose, given he's not in contention for the Premier Top 5 for this season, so therefore going to the BMW, and this might be a little bit of a look forward to season 9 of the GT3 Championship, which we'll tell you all about at the end of today's broadcast. Indeed, do stay tuned after the racing, because we have plenty of interviews. We will give you the provisional final standings, and we'll also talk about season 9 and how you can look forward to that, as there'll be plenty more racing in both Split A and Split B there. Also, just to remind you, we do have a concurrent broadcast currently ongoing for Split A, which is covering our Pro and Elite drivers, and that's being brought to you by the talented pair of Joe Glass and Dara Thacker. And indeed, well, you can tune into that simultaneously on the Evolution Sim Racing YouTube channel. But you're here with Split B and what is our Premier and Evo drivers. And they may be the lower rated drivers, but by no means are they lower rated in terms of their performances this season, no doubt about it. But still, as our laps continue to trickle upwards, well, the first times have been set, and Ricardo Luiz Pereira is the fastest driver out there, ahead of Nick Stubbe, the Acura NSX Evo 22 driver. Well, he's found a little bit of magic out there in the Mugen machine for Vulcan Motorsport Silver, no doubt about it, and he's 1.5 tenths faster than Stubbe. And it does seem as though our prediction of the Mustangs and the Mercedes being the fastest cars out there is being proven wrong otherwise, as we do have only 1 tenth between Luiz Pereira and Robin Milton, who's just set the second fastest time for Phoenix Racing in the Premier class, and a lovely run indeed. But as he comes on down in towards the braking zone there, I hear the question from Berry Racing, which is what car is Craig Tillotson driving? Well, let's take a look to the Rhino Academy driver, and he's out in his ever favourite Corvette Z06 as he heads on around here. And he hasn't had the greatest set of performances this season compared to, I think, what he was expecting, but he's had some great scraps, no doubt about it, towards the bottom end of the top 20, and I'll be hoping for one of those. He crosses the timeline there with 48.329, puts him 17th, and the Corvette driver now heads on to his next lap as he roars his way on towards the braking zone, and this will be going on to, for him, his 3rd flying lap. But in terms of flying laps, well, we do want to get an on-board flying lap with one of our drivers. Who can we go to? Well, we are going to go to the man who's trying to become Evo champion, Wesley Van Rens, as he takes us around then for a flying lap of the Monza Grand Prix circuit. So heading down towards turn number 1, and as he does so, you'll notice they're in 5th gear for as long as possible, eventually touches 6th. That's how long the gearing is in this Ferrari, and heads onto the brakes at the 100 metre board all the way down to an apex speed there of 65 kilometres an hour at the apex of turn number 2, and out of rest video goes, blast the throttle, and then it's the roar once again of the turbo-powered 6-cylinder engine as he heads through turn number 3. Now coming through Curva Grande and all the way up towards turns 4 and 5, we'll stay all the way over to the right here. We'll let the car gradually creep out, and very gentle steering here to bring it back over to the right side of the racing line. Braking there about 120 metres from corner, apex into a G he goes, mounts the first curve, mounts the second curve, and onwards he goes with the suspension being set up there to abuse the curbs. Now coming into Lesmo 1 at turn number 6, and here it's a dab of the brakes, chuck the nose in, hold 3rd gear, and then bring the throttle back in and use the runoff area if you please. But then going into Lesmo 2, it's a very different style of corner here, braking at the 50 metre board, puts the car in. Some drivers will mount the curb, some will avoid it, depending on the setup of the suspension. The Van Rens there using a moderate amount of curb in order to rotate the car. Now down the Cerro straight, and as he does so, powering up towards 5th gear. Will he get to 6th by the time he gets there? He may do, he may not. I think he's going to hold 5th all the way to line, and he will. He brakes there at the 100 metre board, down to 3rd gear, chucks it into Ascari, left, right, and then left again. But you'll notice there, feathering the throttle in for the right-hander, then into left, flat out now as he makes his way along and down towards the final corner he goes. Previously known as Parabolica Curve, and the current name of it I always do forget. I'm sure somebody will point it out to me in the YouTube chat if you'd be so kind. As he heads in towards what used to be known as Parabolica Curve, braking at the 100 metre board, down to 3rd gear, nice early apex, feed the throttle in, and now let the car drift out as wide as possible to the racing line. And as he does so, brings it back over to the right here, shorten the run to the timeline. I think he feels as though this is an improving lap. What's it going to be for Van Rens as he comes to the timing line then for his penultimate lap to be completed? And for Van Rens, it's not an improvement. He stays 16th overall, but in in the Evo class. That's just off of Grant Miller by, I believe, 400. So it's very close between them as we show you those class positions briefly in the session on the left-hand side of your screen. You can see the time and how they're splitting. Remember, everyone queues up on the qualifying grid as they qualified overall. Now, speaking of improvements, James Howarth comes across the line, and that is a beautiful lap from the DXT Motorsports driver. Puts him second on 1 minute 47.501. 300ths off of Peter Duke's fastest time. Duke's back on the grid as well after he's been missing for a couple of rounds, but of course, do keep in mind that we can always expect Duke to be back when he's available. And however, here also demonstrating that when the Mustang is available to put its power down, he's not going to hold it back whatsoever. And right now, well, that is a phenomenal lap. Can anybody go faster? Can anybody dip deeper into the 47.4s? Well, the answer will be some will, but they're not going to have many more laps to go, as Adam Baker has put the car in the pit lane after 3 flying laps. He's not going out there again. Stubbe improves to 4th in the Premier class with a 47.551. It's getting very tight. The top 4 separated by less than a tenth now as they head on around here. So this qualifying session are really coming down to fine margins. Where's Andre Muntin in all of this? And the man who's trying to usurp both Van Rens and also Miller for the Evo Class Championship crown, well, he's currently down in 24th, or what that equates to is 5th place in Evo Class. So qualifying's not quite going his way for ZX's Sim Sports, but we would expect that as he heads onwards and as he charges his way on around. We do say hello there to Liam Fraser, also to Xander Tabbers, also to Chris Jones, who's cheering on Nick Stubbe, and also to Moylan there. And we'll thank you for the compliment, Moylan, and the feedback, and we do really appreciate it, and I hope all goes well for you today in Split A. But as our drives come towards the end of this session then, well, we haven't got long left. We haven't got many drives out there on laps at the moment, albeit one driver's on a lap is Pete Piver as he comes across the line, and currently the Premier driver down 28th, and he's going to stay there as he goes on to his 4th and final flying lap. Can he find any more time? I think he's going to have to if he wants to have a happier start to the racing today. Andrew Muntin, meanwhile, he's trying to improve from 5th in Evo, 24th overall. It's looking a good second half a lap. Oh my good lord, he's getting very close to Barrows. Look at my contact brief window. I thought he was going to hit the tyres. He goes 12th. Well, that's an incredible lap of 47.878. That is Evo pole. And well, Muntin has pulled that out of nowhere. And well, that is a magic trick there that he'll want to replicate in every qualifying session. I think right now, when Milan and Turfcure look to the timing boards inside their pit lanes paddocks, they'll be finding, hold up a second, we've been demoted. Where on earth has Muntin come from? Well, speaking of where have other drivers come from, Jim Fox right now is not going to be springing any surprises. This lap has not been a lap to be remembered. He's currently 26th, or what equates into and 20th in Premier, and that's where he's going to stay. We do have 3.5 minutes left on the clock, and we do have some drivers still on their final laps, including Scott Kostrich here as he heads into the Ascari chicane. Left, right, left he goes. And coming on through here, well, he's been improving in the first half of lap, no doubt about it. You can see there in the subsector times, he's improved in subsectors 1 and 3. That's why they're green. Yellow means he hasn't improved on his previous best. Green means he's improved on a personal best. Meanwhile, if he goes purple, that means he's the fastest of everybody there. Albeit the fastest man in the first and last subsectors has been previously, I believe, James Howarth, who is your pole sitter at the moment. He has, in fact, dethroned Peter Duke off camera. We should point out with his final flying lap, we had an absolutely phenomenal final sector, and Milton's trying to do the opposite of dethroning him now. As across the line goes Kostrich, he improves to 21st. That's a good improvement later in the day at 48.243, but all eyes are on this man right now because Robin Milton is pushing hard on this lap. He has in previous laps gone the fastest of everybody in the latter half, and you combine all the sectors together. He's trying to get himself on pole here, albeit qualifying does not weigh too much in the mind in terms of the fact that if you start on pole, well, the problem is you've got no toe down towards turn 1 and everyone will be queuing up behind you. So Milton here, well, he's going to be starting second. He will be on that front row. He'd ideally like to be on pole so he can set the pace when they do go racing, or he'd preferably like to be on the second row of the grid because then you've got the toe down towards turn 1. But he comes out the final corner, and for Milton here, he's improved right at the start of the lap, but he's not improved in the second half of the lap. And as he comes to line, it's not going to be any further Robin Milton. He stays where he is at second place, but I don't think he'll be complaining about that as Dean Sheesby now on a lap, as well as James Fraser is out there, yet to get a valid lap on the board. And in fact, oh goodness me, Fraser's had a bit of a scrape with the wall there based on the front right of the car, front left from your camera angle for a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen. But the Moonshiners Racing Club Porsche 992 definitely looking as though it's been a bit bruised, if not battered. And as he makes his way out of the final corner, what can Fraser do next time around? Well, that is not going to be a happy lap. That was a 3:18 as he crossed the line. So therefore for Fraser, it's all going a bit wrong. And we should point out that there are pit lane starts for both Charlie Stofford and Mathew Croft. Mathew Croft with an instant That's carried over from round number 8 because the instant review for round 8 was published after round number 9 had taken place due to exceptional circumstances for our admins, and indeed they had a few things they had to take care of in their personal lives, so therefore they couldn't quite get the shooting done. It does mean that a penalty that should have been applied for round number 9 for Mathew Croft to start from the pit lane has been applied here today, and a penalty from round number 9 for Charlie Stoffard also sees him start from the pit lane for the first of our 2 races, so that's why you won't see them out there. And Klaus Vellen in the Lamborghini Huracan Evo GT3 has also yet set a time, and I wonder whether he's planning the pit lane start to get used to a change of machinery. But as Sheesby heads towards the line, where he's currently in 20th place overall, 16th on the Premier Class grid, and as he makes his way through the right-hander, what can he do this time around, the accurate driver? And something tells me this might be a trip to the pits and just seeing where some of the rubber is out on circuit, because it's not the fastest lap out there. Based on the time that the bottom of our graphics showing, he's in the excess region of 4.5 minutes. As he comes to the timeline this time, Sheesby will be staying 20th, and that will be qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen. So it is James Howarth who takes his maiden qualifying pole position in a sprint race this season right at the close, and Robin Milton will join him on the front row of the grid. So it's an all Premier lockout, and it's 2 drivers who have occupied that front row for a limited number of times this season. It'll be Ford on one side, it will be Acura on the other, and further down the order, starting in 12th place overall, will be your Evo pole sitter Andrew Montaigne, with the next Evo drivers being Miller, Turfkeur and Van Rens in the run of 17th through to 19th. Well, that's qualifying. It's time to head to the grid for our first of our 2 races here at the Monza Grand Prix circuit. So as they all make their way onto the grid then, this is how they'll line up for the first of our season finale races. It's James Howarth who takes pole position for DXT Motorsports with an incredible lap there, a 1 minute 47.380. Only 300ths behind him was Phoenix Racing's Robin Milton. That's how close the margins were. Indeed, they always are close here at Monza, but it was incredibly close between them this time around. Starting third will be Peter Duke for DDK Racing Team, and in his company will be Sumo GP2's Robin Aston, who's had a late revival of qualifying form in the last couple of rounds. Well done to him once again. He really is getting that Porsche 992 clocked in. Nick Stubbe starts 5th for Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing. Remember, he's the Dutchman who is trying to upset the apple cart in the fight for second in the Premier Class Championship and steal it away from a 4th place going into this round. Ricardo Luiz Pereira, the elected champion of the Premier Class of Vulcan Motorsport Silver, he's got no pressure on him, but he'll still want to end on a high. He starts 6th behind the Portuguese, the Dutchman Vincent Lerda for Sim Racing Team at Lowlands and Adam Baker for LS Racing B. Completing your top 10, returning to the grid this evening is James Bostock for Carme GP2 Porsche. He'll be eager to get going on a positive in the company of Minnow Blaine for Sim Racing Team at Lowlands, and then behind the Dutchman is his fellow countryman and his fellow teammate Mark de Vries, who starts 11th. We're very happy to have Mark de Vries back on the grid. Remember, he missed several rounds midway through the season due to problems with his pedals, but he's back here and ready to stay. We then have, starting on Evo pole, 12th overall, Andrew Montaigne, the Romanian driver from Z-Axis Sim Sports. He's well on his way potentially to stealing away the Evo crown, because behind him he's got 2 premiers, Sander Tabbas for Sim Racing Team Lowlands and Christopher Starsmore for Simcast Racing UK. Then we have Luke Bailey starting 15th for Team KXR, and Jan Usberg 16th for Nifels at Glass Tech Racing. And then we come to our second Evo driver. It's the Scotsman Grant Miller for Phoenix Racing, and he knows he's got his work cut out here if he wants to try and take victory. As does Roald Turfkeur for MJK Sim Racing, who'll be eager to try and steal one away from his rivals. And then we do have Wesley Van Rens, 19th, 4th in Evo for Racing League Hub, ahead of Dean Sheesby for Moonshiners Racing Club. That's your top 20, but there's more of them on the grid, because we head to row number 11. It's Scott Kostrich for Carme GP2 Porsche, and he's in the company of Christian Malaskov for Verano Academy. Craig Tillison, his teammate, lines up just behind 23rd, ahead of John Lubrett for Carme GP2 Porsche. Then we have Daniel Paul for Flatline Racing, joined in the company of fellow Premier driver Rob Gregg for Moonshiners Racing Club. Jim Fox starts today on the 14th row of the grid for Sumo GP2 in the company of Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing's Dale Williams, and in the top 30 is rounded off by Pete Piver for LS Racing B and Rob McKee for DXT Motorsports. Steve Rubino, he starts 31st for Hobo Racing, a difficult qualifying session there for the American, but he'll be looking forward, as will Matthew Hunter for Simcast Racing UK and the Ferrari. And then we have 33rd on the grid, Jan Nagy for Nifels at Glass Tech Racing, ahead of Sean Clark for DXT Motorsports, with James Pallett beginning this one at 35th for Racing League Hub, head of DXT Motorsports rival Danny Veer. And then on the 19th row of the grid, it's Mark Wesley for LS Racing B, ahead of Mathew Croft for Z-Axis Sim Sports. Klaus Vellen starts 39th for Nifels at Glass Tech Racing, ahead of Charlie Stoffard for Team KXR. And then completing the grid, James Fraser, 41st for Moonshiners Racing Club. And just in time we complete the grid, ladies and gentlemen, because the field makes its way then into the final corner, and as they emerge from Parabolica, it will be to Green Flag Race, and it will be to James Howarth to light the fuel, light the fuse in the Ford Mustang, and see whether he can roar away in that V8 versus the 3.5 litre twin-turbo V6 machine of the Acura alongside him of Robin Milton. It's time for race number 1. And And it's go, go, go as our drivers kick the throttle in, and it's lights out and away we charge down towards turn number 1 for our season finale. As they calm down, however, going a little bit earlier perhaps than planned there, as I think the lights hadn't quite dropped, but as they make the way down towards turn number 1, well, Duke and Milton side by side there, and Peter Duke having a very good start, immediately getting the launch, and Milton being called out there as Duke moves up into second. They come then through the front of Rettifilio, and as they charge the way out, can we look to the blimp camera? We can, but they hide in the forest there, so we can't get a good view. A couple of drivers have gone round further on back. There's been some early drama by looks of things, and one driver is avoiding it all. Mathew Croft already up into 29th, 9 places gained since the start of the race, but as the field makes its way through, we will get a replay of how it all played out in the concertina effect further on down. But looking back up towards the front of the field, Robin Aston to fend off Nick Stubbe as they charge their way through Regia, and up towards Lesmo 1 they go, but it is pressure all around now as they all go single file formation. Roll Turf Gear, he's got up into the second in the Evo class, he's up to 17th place ahead of Grant Miller, and having to go a bit defensive there. Miller tries to take a look up the inside into Lesmo 1, can't quite find a way in. All the drivers now settling down into their respective battles, and this will be where the question is, do you work as a pack or do you fight hard? Well, James Pallett around the outside of Sean Clark there, but some damage on that Ferrari and there's some damage on that DXT Motorsports Porsche, so I can imagine both of them may have been in scrapes, as Ricardo Luiz Pereira and Jim Fox have both had to be towed to the pit, so I think they've had some sort of altercation. But looking further back up the field, and onwards they go in towards the left-hander of Ascari, starting off the chicane. Well, that is going to be Dean Sheesby, who's gained 4 places since the start. Good start for the Acura 152. He's trying to make a bit more progress after Luke Bailey now, and Bailey close up the road, but not too far off to be able to be a threat. As they head in towards turn number 11, you can see in the rear of the picture Steve Rubino off race 9. Is he having to serve an automated slowdown? Potentially. Rubino seems to be backing off as he's letting Mathew Croft go. In fact, I think he was letting Croft go as that's Craig Tillotson in the gravel in the rear of the picture. He's had a bit of an incident. There's a rear wing missing on that Corvette, unless my eyes are deceiving me. And Rubino and Croft and the foreground of our camera swapping places, and well, without further ado, it's Croft now up into 27th, 11th place is gained. But after one lap of racing, it is James Howarth who leads, heading down into the opening chicane. He's in the company of Peter Duke in second. Robin Milton is third, ahead of Robin Aston. The two Robins give chase. Nick Stubbe is then in fifth, ahead of Vincent Loda, with Adam Baker in seventh. Minnow Bloom is eighth. Andrew Montine, your Evo leader, loses a place to James Bostock, but he's not going to be complaining about that because Bostock moves up to ninth. Montine drops to 10th, but he's still your Evo leader by a country mile in terms of the places. But as he charges his way out to turn number 3, he'll be not letting himself get complaints. And Mark De Vries is in 11th, ahead of Christopher Starsmore, and that's your top 12 as it's 2x2s. That's De Vries battling there with Starsmore. Starsmore up the inside of the sim racing team. Lowlands driving, that gets very, very close there. Montine right now being swarmed by Premier drivers as gravel bounces everywhere, and as they come in towards Lesmo 1, well, there, that got very close, it got very technical, and somehow De Vries managed to have been caught up. Here comes Sander Tabbers, who says, can I play as well? And De Vries says, no, only 2 Premiers at once, please. They come out of Lesmo 2, but I think right now it's going to be soon rather than later that we will see this Corvette try to pick its way through as we jump on board with the 128. Of course, he'll be very eager to get back on the back of his fellow teammate Mark De Vries and work with him to move into the overall top 10. Heading into the brakes then for Ascarin, as he does, just tucks in there, no way through at the moment, just has to play the patience game. And well, that's going to be the change now in terms of trying to work with your fellow rivals and not to step on each other's toes and not lose the toe of the drivers in front of the pair of you. But speaking of battling, this is Menno Blum versus, oh goodness me, that's into the barrier there, and that's John Ludbrook, who's had a big shunt coming out of Ascari. Was that aided or was that his own volition? We're not quite sure, but we'll find out shortly as Menno Blum, and meanwhile the inside of Adam Baker, it's a smooth move there, and now Baker will be under pressure from Bostock. Bostock slingshotting his way onto the back of the Ferrari, and he's trying to try and cut his way up the inside of the McLaren all the way down the start finish straight. Well, he will have the toe, but this will be the battle of the two turtles in terms of cars that don't normally have the straight line speed unless you really go for it, and this will be the question of who has decided to take all the rear wing out of the car, and by looks of things both have as they come onto the brakes, and it's going to be Bostock on the inside and gets it done, or does he? No, he has to leave the door open, but Baker takes a little bit too much apex curb. The sausage curb strikes, and it prevents him from being able to get the traction down, and it's a smooth move for Bostock up into 8th place overall. Further on down the order, Steve Rubino trying to make some progress here. He's battling with Daniel Paul for 7th in Evo, as we do look to the class positions on the left-hand side of your screen. And Ricardo Luiz Pereira having to navigate the chicane barriers there, I believe, having to go straight on at the chicane, and well, I can imagine that might be for a bit of a late braking moment, and therefore avoiding going into one of the sausage curves and damaging the suspension, as Rubino watching Croft battle here with McKee, and McKee there making plenty of space as the DXT Motorsports BMW gives way to the Z-Axis Sim Sports Porsche in the end, and Croft is continuing to hustle his way up the order. He's not giving in, but we can see there Daniel Paul up the inside of Rubino into Lesmo 1, and well, I think Rubino Rubino there being caught out a little bit, and Paul getting the move done, but Rubino very close to Charlie Stoffard, also on the attack here as they come out of Lesmo 2, and onwards they go and roaring their way all the way onwards towards Ascari. But right now Stoffard got very close coming out of Lesmo 2, didn't quite get the power down, I think misanticipating the closure rate, and therefore it does mean that the Rubino pulling away a little bit. Well, as you can see, the brake's going on once and then going on again earlier. I wonder if Rubino's testing his brake pedal there, because we saw the brake lights come on briefly, unless he's got a bit of a braking issue there. Sometimes they do dab the brake just to see whether the brake is coming alive. It's a tiny tap of the brake just to feel the car slightly retard, and they come off a bit and then go back to it straight after. It can help with the brake modulation. But as Stoffard just stays behind right now, can't quite find a way into this fight, he's going to play a bit more of a witness here. As he charges way on around the final corner, we take a look back to some of the open lap instance. I believe we are going to see what happened, and well, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we get your replay of your start of the race. Now, this was started off with Danny Veer, who roared his way down towards turn number 1. The DXT Motorsports Crayola machine being... Was that a tap there from... Oh, goodness me. And, well, Danny Veer ended up going sideways into one of our drivers. That was Pete Piver. And, well, I can imagine Piver there being called out James Pallett as well. Can we get a replay of what happened to Danny Veer from Mathew Croft's perspective? I think we can. Let's listen. And it was a tap on the rear from Croft there. I think Croft misanticipating his braking zone, and well, that led to the chain reaction that occurred subsequently. So an unfortunate one there, and Croft will recognise that, and I think he'll address it with his rival and good friend after the race. We also did have a separate incident, I believe, for none other than Ricardo Luiz Pereira. In fact, he decided to start from the pit lane, did Luiz Pereira. So did he miss his gridding procedure? I think he did. He did not go green flag racing when everybody else did, and that's a surprise and not a welcome one. And then what happened to Craig Tillerson? This was on the open lap as well, and this was coming down in towards Ascari. You can see their Malaskov battling with Van Rens, but this was Tillerson then coming through Ascari, left into right, carries a bit too much speed, and I believe getting tapped there by the Mercedes, and that being the Mercedes of Dale Williams. It sent Tillerson around, no rearing on the rear of the car as he tried to rejoin, and got out the way of everybody, scooping his way to the inside of turn number 9, and well, the damaged car, we then saw the subsequent aftermath when the car was crawling along here on the gravel. So let's come back to your live racing. We indeed have taken a look back at the open lap instance, as soon as we do, of course, it seems to be the way there's an incident on the circuit. That's Dean Sheesby going around, and my good lord, oh no, it's all gone wrong for Jim Fox in the rear of the picture as well. Did Fox get caught out there or carry a bit too much speed with the gravel? It's gone wrong for the pair of them coming out of Ascari, and we'll try and get a replay of those incidents when we can, but an absolute nightmare moment, no doubt about it. But from what's happened there, well, goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, more change happening afoot, and this happened off camera, but we do have a new race leader overall and in the Premier class. It's Peter Duke who's found his way ahead of James Howarth. Howarth now down to second with Robin Milton behind it. Looks though the Acuras are now starting to come alive, as this race is definitely also stepping up in its tone. But charging the way down towards Regia then for the 5th time of asking, and onto the brakes they go. That's a quick move from Vincent Loader. I think that's more about trying to threaten rather than having anything serious in the tank. He took a sneak peek up the inside of Stubbe there, and also that maybe to help him sight his braking zone. But either way, Loader starting to get a little bit eager. He's running in 5th, but he wants to try and take 4th on as this top 6 pack make the way in towards the Lesmos and out of it. It's absolutely close between them, no questions asked here as they all push each other. But you can see some gravel there, and Duke starting to pull away. Now, we wouldn't expect this early, but the DK Racing Team Acura is absolutely flying. That gap's up to 8 tenths here, and it looks like Howarth is actually struggling a little bit at this time. Has he got some damage on the car, or alternatively, is he just trying to save the tyres a little bit? Because over these 30-minute races, you can push the tyre compound quite hard, but you do need to protect it a little bit over the race distance. So Howarth might be just doing a small bit of tyre saving here to give himself more tyre life later on. But one thing that is noticeable, notice how he's really gluing himself to the toe of Duke. Duke is trying to break the toe, understandably, because the slipstream offers a couple of miles an hour extra on every straight, as that's a quick peek up the inside by Stubbe on Milton. But normally, if you're Howarth and you have the confidence in that Mustang, you would not potentially flex yourself over the road to try and follow Duke literally line by line. But it looks as though there, well, it's quite the opposite. So I wonder perhaps where Howarth's investing a little bit of rear wing to give himself some stability, and in doing so has actually cost himself some straight line speed, praying that the Mustang will have the acceleration. But from theorising, we look there, it's almost 3 wide. Loader taking a look to the inside versus Stubbe, who's battling on the inside there of Milton, but in the end can't overhaul him under braking. So Robin Milton goes full defensive here through Ratfilio, and that's going to cause this fight for third to just gradually drop away from the top 2. You can see the gap becoming pronounced there, and they're all stepping on each other's toes. further back, Adam Baker, well, he's making some progress here. Currently in 9th. He started in 8th in this race, but he's making some progress chasing after James Bostock, who is continuing to harry his way through the field, and up towards turns 4 and 5 they go. A bit of defence there from James Bostock, trying to keep Baker behind, and well, as he goes onto the brakes there, we know the one thing that Porsche is very good at is at heavy braking, and able to keep that the Porsche firmly behind him. As I've got Mustang on the brain there, and well, from them, well, right now Montine on the brain as well, as the ZX Cinesport Strider heads in towards turn number 6. Well, he has got Road Turf Q and Grant Miller coming along, and Miller giving chase after the man who is 4th place in the championship. He can't potentially take the Evo Championship crown, but he can definitely become a big player in that championship fight, depending on where he finishes. And well, Montine doing everything right at the moment. So you may be asking, where is Van Rens in all this? Well, Wesley Van Rens is a little bit further back. Here he is in 4th place in Evo, and he's got to play Scott Kostrich in front of him and Christian Malaskov behind him. And Malaskov and Kostrich both Premier drivers, so therefore is going to be one of those challenges whereby for Van Rens, he wants to work these Premier drivers to make progress, but he'll also be cognizant of the fact if they start fighting, they will naturally push him backwards away from his Evo class rivals. However, that's the theory. How will it work out in practice? And that's what he's going to be wondering as Mathew Croft here. Well, he won't be thinking about the theory right now. He'll be thinking foot to the floor, go, 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 as much as he possibly can. And looking at around the outside of Dale Williams there. Williams missed the front bumper on that Mercedes. They don't normally come like that, I can assure you. And as he comes in towards the final corner, well, 11 minutes complete. We've still got 19 minutes to go. And a cutback move there from Croft. It's going to set him up for a run here down the start for the straight. The problem will be, who is Malaskov going to give the slipstream to? And the answer is he's trying to give it to both of them, as they both try and take a sniff of the rear of that Porsche 992. Croft will get ahead in the end, and I can imagine with Williams missing the front bump, he's losing some straight line speed there with the additional aerodynamic drag, and it's not quite working out at the moment. Croft now up another position, further in the rear of the picture. That's Charlie Stoffard back in with Steve Rubino. Both of them are sporting some damage on the front of their respective machines, and Stoffard gets back ahead of Rubino into the braking zone for Rettivilio. Coming out of it, however, I think Rubino will be thinking a bit more about a move for that. Luke Bailey fighting there with Dean Sheesby, and Sheesby after that instant has got himself back ahead, and Sheesby having to work his way out the order. But how exactly did he end up in a bad place? Well, Luke Bailey was involved in the incident. In fact, a number of drivers have been. We started what happened to Luke Bailey. This was on lap number 4. So this was coming out of the first of 2 Lesmos, runs wide there, however that's legal. Battling side by side with Sheesby, turns in, and the Team KXR driver in the end trying to turn across with Sheesby still there. Oh, and that's a big hit, and that would have been to the car of Malaskov there, and that explains what happened to Luke Bailey, who in the end was in the barrier and eventually recovered. Later on that lap, we then had something happen to Dean Sheesby, and this was Sheesby coming out of Ascari with some damage already. Makes about the corner, runs to the AstroTurf, the car goes one way, then it goes the other. He tries to counter steer it, but in the end he counters himself right in the middle of the road, and that would have been a very scary moment for everybody involved. But for Jim Fox, well, what happened to Fox, who was already a lap down by looks of things? Well, he made his way on through the corners. Let's ride on board. Takes a lot of sausage curb there, takes even more sausage curb, it drops the car, and wham, bam. No thank you, ma'am. That's not the way you want it to go for the Sumo GP2 driver, and that has gone very, very wrong, and that's going to be a very crunching moment on the front bumper of that Porsche 992. And I can imagine Sumo GP2 right now will be hoping that race number 2 can be a happier race as we come back to your live racing pictures. As we do, well, we looked down the field at Sheesby versus Bailey. These two had the altercation earlier on, and now they're back together. Bailey this time hoping for a much easier way past Sheesby. I think Sheesby is going to make it difficult still because they're enjoying a good little fight. Coming on to their next lap, well, from them, we're a little bit further up the order to Daniel Paul. He's fighting hard with Matthew Hunter, and Hunter right now, we're holding on to this position of none other than 5th place in the Evo class. We can see Paul cutting in behind there. That Ferrari's so strong when it's got a toe down these long straights, but when it hasn't got the toe, that's where it really struggles. And see Stoffard and Rubino, they're closing up on this fight. So Hunter, Paul, Stoffard and Rubino, they're the fight for 5th through to 8th in the Evo class, and only 1.2 seconds ahead of them is last week's race number 2 winner in the Evo class, Rob Gregg. And there's ZX Cinesport, well, not the ZX Cinesport driver there, the Moonshine's Racing Club driver. Well, as he comes on down the Rob GT machine, as it's proudly sponsored on the front, he's over the back of Malaskov and Williams and continues to press onwards. But you can see, well, the fact he's caught up behind the Premier drivers, this is costing him some time and it's forced him backwards. And Greg right now, we're looking in his rearview mirror and thinking, I don't want them to get closer to me, and then realising, you know what, they are going to get closer. I better get ready for a fight unless I can clear this Rhino Academy machine. We'll have to wait and see whether he can do that. that as he comes on towards the Seraglio curve. But behind you can see there, Hunter again still battling. In fact, a run wide from Hunter at Lesmo 2 is going to give the place back to Daniel Paul as they head all the way up towards Ascari here. So Paul and Hunter really enjoying this back and forth scrap, no doubt about it. As from them, Steve Rubino under pressure on McKee. McKee up the inside here, and it's going to be too wide into Ascari. The Hobo Racing driver says, no you don't, please go away. And right now the kidney being BMW in terms of its grills, as he chases after Rubino, it's not going to work out there for McKee at all, and he roars his way onwards as we ride on board. And that very definitive dashboard view there from the 117, but the DXT Motorsports car right now, it stays close, but it can't find a way in. That Mustang just proving to be absolutely obstinate, and we can understand why, because Rubino really wanting to chase down Stoffard. He doesn't want to get involved in the politics of a Premier driver trying to pick his way through the Evo class. But going down the start-finish straight here, well, the one thing about this BMW is also a bit of a straight-line machine, particularly with its flat 6 engine getting closer and closer. Well, now it's going to be inevitability, so the Hobo Racing Mustang pulls to the right. The DXT Motorsports car and McKee looks around the outside. Well, the Hobo Racing car looks to outbrake the BMW. The one thing that BMW doesn't have is a strong brake set, however, for all of its stability, and therefore we will see the places stay as they were as they charged away on towards the next chicane. But out they come, and all the way up towards at the front of the field we go, and this is James Howarth still leading as they come through Lesmo 1 and into Lesmo 2, and well, in fact Howarth has returned to lead, I should really say, in the last few laps. And well, the reason why he's returned to lead, we've had some drama for Peter Duke, who was leading at the time. What exactly happened to Peter Duke is the question. Let's get a replay to explain. So this was the battle then in towards Rettifido. Duke was leading, they made the way out the corner. Duke taking a bit of an excursion wide, so Howarth takes evasive action. Duke now losing the speed. Howarth's going to go around the outside here, and Milton behind tucks in. Well, as he did so, well, this was going to be a bit of a race. Surely they didn't try and go free wide into Regia. It doesn't work. Well, unless they've got a lot of faith in each other. Howarth was ahead. Milton side by side here. In fact, he looked to the inside, then thought better of it. So Milton definitely was trying to tee up the move. Couldn't quite get it done. And well, Duke coming through takes a lot of sausage curb there as he made his way out of the corner. And then it was, well, the cube building and Stubbe all over the back of him. So something's got to have happened at this point, because it only happened on this lap, all the instance. They made the way out of Lesmo 1 in towards Lesmo 2. Duke under the mercy now. Stubbe looking for an opportunity. And well, nothing materialising there, but Milton getting very close. And well, can we move forward to what happened to Peter Duke? The answer is yes, we can. And this was a little bit late on that. This was into Ascari, so Howarth going defensive. Side by side here between Duke and Stubbe into Ascari. And well, Stubbe taking too much curb. The two getting caught together into the barrier. Oh, dearie me. Well, too wide into Ascari, it can work, but it's one of those moves where you've got to give each other plenty of space. And well, in the end, for all the disaster for Nick Stubbe and Peter Duke, they'll be talking about that one after the race. Well, that enabled an opportunity there for the top two to pull away a little bit, and Robin Milton and what is Vincent Loader later on exchanging places a second. So it's Loader now in second, and Milton in third. But as the drivers head through Lesmo 1, right now Howard continuing to lead and trying to make sure he doesn't lose this lead again. He now has a Porsche behind him rather than Acura. It's a different machine, a different driver, and a different story. But don't count Loader out for the simple reason he is proving that to be a very quick driver, regardless of what machine he is in and what circuit he's at. Further down, as he goes around the outside of Adam Baker, they're just crawling along. I wonder where he's had a bit of a moment and just trying to recover from it. That's Mark De Vries now up into 8th place overall in Premier, and he charges his way onwards down Seraglio. He's got Christopher Starsmore, and Baker then tucks in into 10th place. So Baker having a bit of a moment. Jan Usberg, who started all the way down in 16th place, he's now up into 11th. He's had a bit of a quiet race, but he's enjoying himself out there, and I can imagine right now, with all the misfortune that has struck the Lifehalls at Glass Tech Racing driver over the course of this season, he's just trying to avoid any of it, and we're trying to avoid putting the commentator's curse on him. But you know, we've probably done it now. Yeah, as he makes his way along, so we mentioned him, but as he charges his way in towards Parabolica Curve in due course, he's got your Evo leader of Andrew Montine behind him, and it's a 2.5 second gap to Roll Turfcure, the second place Evo driver. But speaking of Evo drivers, well, Wesley Van Renz is up into third, but some of you might be asking, have we lost somebody who was running inside the top three? And the answer is yes, we have. We have lost Grant Miller. Where has he gone? And well, we can fill you on that story, because here's the replay to explain. Now, he was at the time battling for second with Roll Turfcure, and this was down in towards the Regia chicane. Under braking here, well, all over the back of the Porsche. Oh no, and getting too close. They're coming off the sausage curve of turn number 4, and it just kicked the car around. I'm thinking he might have had to dab the brake. Can we get on board of that? I think we might be able to. And here we go. Let's listen in. So coming into that braking zone. Oh, dear me, just carrying too much speed. He had the perfect line. Turfcure struggling through there by comparison that time, and Miller in the end tapping the rear of the Porsche, and with the drop off of the entry curb. well, the two went together and it sent the car around. So Miller will be fuming at that one because he was hoping to really chase after that podium, not chase after the win, and now he's got to recover it all. However, he is down in none other than 7th place, and Evo's all the way down in 26th place, and with 11 minutes remaining plus the final lap, something tells me that is not going to be an easy task. And speaking of not easy tasks, well, Mathew Croft now trying to move his way into 16th place, and Croft has only got 2 places to go before he's inside the top 15 reverse grid. Imagine if he finished 15th, that would be one of the stories of the season for him to come all the way from the back of the field, from the pit lane, we should add, given the fact he had the qualifying ban, and to pick his way all the way to 15th upwards, but heading all the way down the back straight here in towards the Ascari he goes. Well, Wesley Van Rens is not going to make this too difficult for him by the looks of things. The Racing League Hub Ferrari just steps aside, and Croft there moves into 16th. Next target, Sander Tabbers, a rival in Premier, and Tabbers and Kostrich having a good little ding-dong battle here as they roar the way out to turn number 10. We look back from the rear of the Carme GP2 Porsche machine, and they're fighting over some of the last points in class. They're heading in towards turn number 11, and where you can see that Kostrich right now with a comfortable gap, and it's Tabbers who's got more of the pressure behind as Croft is closing and closing quickly. As Kostrich rolls his way through the right-hander then onto the start-finish straight. Well, right now hoping he's had a good exit out of the corner. Looks like it's been a decent one, but that Corvette is now starting to inch closer and closer. And aerodynamically, that Corvette, very similar properties to the Ferrari in the wind tunnel. And as they roar the way onwards, that's why that Corvette will pick up quite a sensational bit of speed, depending on the gearing of it. And Kostrich here just putting the car in a bit of an off-centre position as I try to find my words there as he finds his braking zone and trying to send a bit of a distant message, I think, to Tabbers, which is if you want to go for it, you can, but I am going to make this a bit more difficult for you than you would like. But no sign of a move there as they head in towards turn 3, and will they stay as they were before that braking zone. But from there, on the blimp camera, well, we look to the forest there, and as they roar the way on through, Lesmo at number 1 and in towards Lesmo 2. We come back down to the circuit side, and Howarth right now still leading, but under that pressure for the lead from Luda and Milton. And this top 3 with Menno Blom, a surprise Menno Blom there in 4th place. And well, the Ferrari driver, who I believe has yet to get an overall podium this season, he's trying to chase after one. He is 1.6 seconds behind. He may get involved in this because we've got 9 minutes to go, and this lead trio is fighting hard at the moment. So Howarth is trying to back the rest of the field into the rest of the pack, but rolling out of a Ascari. Well, if he's able to do so, Blum could be in an opportunity here to really fight for a podium spot, and that would be a huge opportunity, no doubt about it. But heading up towards turn number 11, and as they come in towards the right-hander, no change at the moment. They all stay as they were. Mark de Vries further on back. The racing team at Lowlands machines are really enjoying the racing right now, and well, as the Dutchman here looks around the outside, that's going to be de Vries on Bostock, and he's going to take that place as Bostock tries to outbrake him on the inside, but the Ferrari that goes all the way around the outside. And now it'll be a drag race here. You would think that Ferrari will eventually outpace the Porsche, but will it be able to get to top gear in time to do so? That's the problem, because the Porsche has the better acceleration, the Ferrari has the better top end speed, and going along here, well, it's still side by side. He's starting to pull ahead de Vries. It's minuscule how much he's putting ahead. It's millimetres at this point. Onto the brakes they go, and well, Bostock gets back ahead and using the brakes disadvantage. A lovely counter-attack there from James Bostock. Moves back into 7th place, and Starsmore now gets involved there. Takes a bit of gravel for good measure as Adam Baker looks around the outside here, and the Ellis Racing B McLaren. Well, Baker was going slowly coming out to Lesmo's earlier on due to an automated slowdown penalty, but he's been able to retrieve that place back. He's now back into 9th place, but Starsmore, I think, is going to have something to say about that before the end of this lap. Onto the brakes they go then in towards Regier. No change at this time. They all stay as they are. And as they come on out of there, we look back to Wesley Van Rens. And well, he's still chasing after Sander Tabbers. And you have a 6-second gap to this man, Rob Gregg, the 4th place Evo driver. And well, I can tell you one thing, the Acura driver's making a habit of finishing 4th in this class, in the Evo class over the course of the season. When he finishes 4th in race number 1, it normally leads to a bit of magic in race number 2. So be hoping for that, no doubt about it. But heading in towards the right-hander of Lesmo 1, we do say hello there to Ross Norsworthy, who's rooting for Christopher Starsmore, and also Matt Hunter. He's not able to race this week, but he's wishing the best luck from Spain. I hope you're having a good time in Spain, Ross, and I presume that's a holiday. If not, it'd be for work reasons or something in between. You're welcome to elaborate if you so desire, but of course we won't pry any further, but we hope you're doing well all the same. But as our tries all continue on here, well, time is definitely wearing down in this race at Monza. 7 minutes plus the final lap on the clock. Still plenty of questions to be asked in terms of who's going to be your winners, who's going to finish inside that top 10. And for Mathew Croft, can he go any further? Because he tries to pick on Scott Kostrich. He's already up into 15th. He has got ahead of Tabbers off camera. He's looking around the outside. Now this is to move him even further to gain some points, but there's a bit of a sideways moment. There was that contact between the two of them. Well, Croft was very sideways coming out of the parabolic curve, and Kostrich has been able to keep him behind. So Mathew Croft here absolutely going guns blazing, trying to pick up the places. is. But as he roars onwards and knowing every place he gains, the next one becomes exponentially harder. But heading down towards turn number 1, and as he does, you can see there Vesely Van Ren's at the rear of the group pulling out of the toe. And I think sending the message which is, look, I don't want to fight, I just want to be here, and I want that third place in Evo because it practically guarantees me all the advantages I need going into the final race of the season. Even though one team will finish ahead of him, he won't gain that many points by comparison with finishing much further back. From them as they come on out, where we do look a bit further down the order to Craig Tillerson, who is fighting with Matthew Hunt here. And well, these two have both had difficult stories so far, but they're not afraid to have a little bit of scrap out there, and who can blame them as they roar the way on around and as they make their way through the corners. Well, we do look to your positions, and in particular looking to the oval positions. Well, in fact, our time tower has glitched for a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen, so we do apologise. It does look as though our time tower's decided to have a bit of a moment, and let's get that refreshed if we can. Well, I think in fact it's having some difficulty there, so we might have a bit of an issue with our time tower, and we will see if we can get it back in due course. But plenty of racing still ongoing, no doubt about it. And well, we look to Adam Baker here as he makes his way down in towards the braking zone for Ascari, but behind is Osberg up the inside of Starsmore. That's going to be a smooth move under braking, and the Porsche 992 driver, well, he moves up into 10th place. So Starsmore starting to go back a little bit here in at the closing stages of this race. Not quite working out for Starsmore the way he wants it to, and well, as we briefly lose our overlay, it will come back at some point. We do promise you that, ladies and gentlemen. Just having some slight technical issues at the moment. Well, Osberg there moving up into 10th and looking to push a bit further onwards then as he now chases after Baker, but Starsmore will be quite behind Osberg as they head out of the corner and up towards turn number 1 they'll go. So 5.5 minutes left on the clock. Well, in fact, 4.5 minutes there, plus a final lap. Let's do our maths. The overlay's back, thank goodness for that. And as they head down towards turn 1, well, Starsmore now looking for the counter-attack here. He's going slowly out of the pit lane. That's James Fraser who'll be a lap down, so he won't want to intervene. He'll stay to the right of the white line. And well, Starsmore having to go a bit defensive there because Andrew Lentine was thinking about it. You can understand why, because the accurate Evo leader, he's got Roll Turfcure who is closing on him, and Turfcure closing at a reasonable rate of knots at about 2.5 tenths a lap. He'll be there on the last couple of laps if he carries on this way, given the way he's closing that gap down. But heading up towards turns 4 and 5, no change at the moment from them, but one thing that we're going to be keeping an eye out for there, because you never know, there could be some surprises before all is said and done. But winding our way all the way back up towards the front of the field, here is your lead battle, and this is where things are starting to get very intriguing as we look back from the rear of the DXT Motorsports 154, and we're heading down the Sergio curve here. You can see a Loader getting close, but Vincent Loader, interestingly, that's a lift off there. He doesn't want to fight this right now. I wonder whether Loader's thinking, you know what, I don't want to fight until the final lap. That's the only lap where I need to be ahead of this Mustang. The rest of it, I can just follow it. And in the meantime, he might just be playing the game of save some tyre life and also do some analysis. See where Howarth is stronger, where he's weaker, and try and get all that information together. And if Howarth's not aware that Loader is playing the game of just stay behind and be rather obedient at the moment, it may catch him out in the last couple of laps. Albeit all these drivers, they will be experienced in racing each other, and they will have plenty of racing experience between them. Indeed, they've been on the grid for multiple seasons, a good number of them, if not since the origins of the Evolution Sim Racing GT3 Championship. But the point is, right now, if you don't look out for these little things, when you look at these nuances, that is where surprises can come. And Loader doing all the analysis here, and in fact, in the toe once again, it looks one way than the other. Howarth goes defensive in towards the chicane here. They come on through, and well, Loader doesn't try to force it all the way round, but almost a tap on the rear there. And as they come out of the corner, well, Loader resets, gets ready to go again, as Robin Milton having a bit of a ham sandwich of a moment there through the chicane, not quite getting it right at all. In fact, losing 3 tenths to the back of Loader. So the Acura now under pressure from Minno Blum, and Blum, conversely, he's on the attack here now for a podium. And well, Minno Blum, if he can pull this off, that would be a huge result, given the fact he started all the way down in 10th place. But if he can gain one more place, well, that is going to be a podium. And it's been a long time since we've seen the Sim Racing Team Lowlands machine on the podium, and he'll be absolutely smiling about that. Heading around through a Lesmo 1. Well, right now, just waiting his turn in the STL Ferrari, and he'll be hoping there's an opportunity created. He's going to need to pick it soon because this is the penultimate lap of the race. We will get one more after this, if my maths is correct. Further down the order, have we got any other action happening? We have. We've got Mathew Croft, who's picked his way. We're still in 15th place. He's trying to find his way past Kostrich here for 14th. Looking up the inside there, just a quick glimpse, trying to get into the minor Kostrich, but we ride on board with the ZX System Sport 113, and coming into Lesmo 2. Well, he's not not close enough to make a move here. He'll try and get a better run off the corner. And, well, with the fact that Kostric takes a bit of gravel with him for measure, that's not going to be a weight reduction. That's going to be a weight increase on the left-hand side of the car. And some of the gravel will get stuck in the stone trays and head in towards the sky. We can see Kostric's going defensive. Croft is going to look to the right there. And, well, coming from off racing line back onto it. That's going to put some extra heat in the tyres and the front brakes for Kostric's car. Croft gets an absolute lion's roar coming out of Ascari. That's a beautiful run. And now, well, Kostric goes immediately defensive. He knows Croft's got the speed. But look at that. Croft hasn't got straight line speed on. I think that might be the front end damage we saw from the start of the race. Plus, also, perhaps the way the car's set up. And Kostric will feel confident now that if he gets a reasonable run out of a corner, he might be able to out-drag Croft the next time on through. But as they head across the timeline, well, from these drivers, they roar their way onwards. They'll be side by side shortly, but coming down into the first of the chicanes, it's going to be a car going straight on. That is Craig Tillotson taking excursion. Whitey doesn't want to get involved in this battle as he's a lap down. This is Stubbe versus Bostock, and Stubbe gets back ahead for a brief moment. Coming back to the Croft versus Kostric battle. Kostric out dragging Croft into the braking zone for Rettifidio. Well, Croft's Porsche does not have the straight line speed, and therefore that's why they're staying where they are. Stoffard and Greg are both into the pits. We've got two Evo drivers in the pits. That's for fuel, I suspect, given the fact they probably didn't expect to do a 17th lap, and that's going to be a surprise. So that's going to be places changed. So Rob, Greg and Stoffard in the pit lane at the moment. That promotes Grant Miller back up off camera into 4th place in Evo, so his hopes are still alive. But more battling then between Stubbe and Bostock. This lap really now starting to build up as they roar the way out of Lesmo 1, and Stubbe still ahead. Bostock did get ahead coming out of Regia, but he lost out in the run to Lesmo, and therefore would now tuck in behind again. From them, we've got a change for P2 oncoming, have we? Because Robin Milton comes on through. That's a slow running Vincent Loader, and Miller Bloom up the inside. Has Loader got a problem? Is he out of fuel? Because if so, that is going to be heartbreaking now as they roar the way out to the left-hander of turn number 10, and this is going to open up the top three massively, and I think Loader hasn't got enough fuel. He's falling backwards on the left-hand side of your picture. Loader, I think, did not anticipate a 17th lap, and this is going to change the complexion of everything because that's Robin Milton going slow. Miller Bloom's going around the outside, but meanwhile, as he comes out to the final corner, well, look at this. The roar of American muscle comes to the checker flag, and it's James Howard for DXD Motorsports who takes overall victory in race 1 of the day here at Monza. Ahead of Miller Bloom, who makes it onto the podium there, 2nd place from 10th. Robin Aston completes this race 3rd, and with it the podium overall in Premier, and then it will be Robin Milton who cruise across the line to 4th, just ahead of James Bostock, who outpaces Nick Stubbe by a 10th. Adam Baker 7th, Mark DeVries 8th, Janosberg 9th, Christopher Starsmore 10th, Andrew Montine comes on home, winner in Evo just ahead of Roll Turf Q at 11th and 12th between them, and then it will be Scott Kostric ahead of Mathew Croft and Wesley Van Rens, completes your Evo podium and inherits reverse grid pole position for race 2 with a 15th place finish. What a job from him. Sander Towers was 16th ahead of Christian Malaskov, and then we have Dale Williams, Grant Miller 4th in Evo. He keeps his championship hopes alive just about, and Rob McKee complete your top 20. We've still got some more drives to make the way to the line, including Vincent Loader, who's got no speed whatsoever. He's crawling, he's out of fuel. That's going to cause him to lose all the places. Charlie Stoffard comes on out to the corner very shortly. Well, he had to dip to the pits. As you can see, Loader there crawling into the pit lane, so Stoffard will take the place off him. Daniel Poole comes up behind, and then we've got Danny Veer in a front bumper missing Porsche 992. And we've got Dean Sheesby a bit further back. So a very late twist in the tail there for a number of drivers who, just under-fueled slightly and didn't have enough in the tank to get to that finish. And Sheesby comes on through them, 27th. Sean Clark just behind him. And then we've still got 2 finishers to come, Jan Nagy and Matthew Hunter. Well, Nagy's going to be 10th in Evo, 29th overall, and then Matthew Hunter will be the last lead lap finisher here in the Simcast Racing UK Ferrari 296. And well, it definitely has been a challenging race for the Ferraris on their home soil in the Simcast Racing UK team, but for Matthew Hunter, it's one that he'll look to learn from going into our final race of the season. But goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, what a way for the race to end. And well, James Howarth, he's got the smile on the face because he knows he's pulled off an absolutely brilliant win after losing it early on to Peter Duke, was able to get back ahead, and after that didn't look back despite the pressure put on him. So after race number 1, while drivers have a 5-minute warm-up, we have, of course, a 5-minute breather. Well, you guys and girls do. Unfortunately, we don't here in the commentary booth because we will sip water very quickly, and then we'll walk you through those race results subject to any steward's inquiries. And in fact, here are those results then from race number 1 here in our season finale, round 10 of 10 in the Evolution Sim Racing GT3 Championship, season 8 of the Trophy AI sponsored championship, brought to you on iRacing. And of course, we're looking at Split B. James Howarth taking victory for DXT Motorsports, and what a victory in the end, 2.7 seconds clear as a result of many of his rivals running low on fuel on the final lap. It went 17 laps and some didn't predict it, but he took victory. Menno Blom finishing second, having started in 10th place. What a drive from the Sim Racing team at Lowlands driver there to carve his way through the field, and the Dutchman is going to be absolutely smiling. Robin Aston completing a top 3 there for Suma GP2, a great result from him as well. Indeed, a deserved podium, no questions asked about that. Robin Milton, he crawled to 4th for Phoenix Racing, just held on to a top 5, ahead of James Bostock for Kame GP2 Porsche, who out-dragged Nick Stubbe to line. Stubbe for Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing, well, he had a nice 3-second gap there in 6th to Adam Baker in 7th for LS Racing B, who picked up the place he lost late on with a bit of lady luck on his side. And then Mark DeVries 8th there for Sim Racing Team Lowlands, ahead of Jan Osberg for Nifels at Glass Tech Racing, and Christopher Starsmore completing your top 10 for Simcast Racing UK. He moved forward early on, but it went backwards midway through and couldn't quite refine the pace. Evo class winner Andrew Montine, best of the rest in the length there, a great result for him for ZX's Sim Sports. Ahead of MJK Sim Racing's Road Turf Courier, who was runner-up in the Evo class and came on strong towards the end of the race, but wasn't quite close enough at the end to mount a challenge. Scott Kostrich, 13th for ZX's for Kame GP2 Porsche, and then it was ZX's Sim Sports Mathew Croft, 14th on the road. He wanted that 13th, but couldn't find his way past the Scotsman, and Kostrich making himself wider than any other Porsche we've seen this season. Wesley Van Rens, 3rd place in Evo, but most importantly for him, 15th place overall, and that means your Racing League Hub Evo driver will be your pole sitter for the final race of the season, and he'll be happy about that one because that gives him every opportunity to shut down this championship. Well, as our results briefly glitched there, but they come back from trying to hide themselves. Sander Tabbers in 16th, and the top 20 completed by Christian Malaskov, Dale Williams, Grant Miller, and Rob McKee. As we look further on down the order, well, we won't draw too long on the rest of the overall finishing positions. Kim will come on to the class position shortly, but in terms of your last lead lap finisher, it was Dean Sheesby who rounded off your top 30 there in 30th place for Moonshiners Racing Club, and it was a lap down. Commiserations to Vincent Noda, who ran out of fuel right at the end and had to crawl into the pit lane at the finish line for Sim Racing Team Lowlands. It was also a lap down to Craig Tillerson, James Fraser, Mark Wesley, Pete Piver, and Jim Fox. 2 laps down to Ricardo Luiz Pereira, 5 laps down to James Pallett, last of our classified finishers for Racing League Hub, and we also did have the retirements of Peter Duke, John Ludbrook and Klaas Vellum. Then coming on to the individual class finishing positions, let's go through these quickly, starting with the Premier Class. Well, there you can see James Howarth taking that victory. Not many have come to him this season, but that's another class victory for the DXT Motorsports Ford Mustang driver, and he'll be absolutely pleased with that. Menno Blom and Robin Aston rounded off the Premier podium, and then we did have in 4th place Robin Milton ahead of James Bostock. Nick Stubbe, Adam Baker, Mark DeVries, Jan Osberg and Christopher Starsmore completed the top 10 as they finished on the tarmac overall. And then in length for Scott Kostrich. Some good points gained there for the best of the rest driver ahead of Mathew Croft, with Sander Tabbers, Christian Malaskov and Dale Williams rounding off the Premier top 15. Outside that top 15 was Rob McKee ahead of Luke Bailey after the scraps they had with respective rivals, and Danny Veer and Dean Sheesby completing the finishers on the lead lap with a lap down to Vincent Loder, Craig Tillerson, Pete Piver, and further on down there we also did see a lap down to Jim Fox, 2 down for Ricardo Luiz Pereira, James Pallett, 5 laps down your last of your finishers, and retirements for Peter Duke, John Lebret and Klaas Vellum. Then coming on to the Evo class, and as we can see here in the second R2 classes, it was Andrew Montine with a brilliant pole lap when he was able to convert that through to victory for ZX's Sim Sports by 9 tenths over MJK Sim Racing's Road Turf Courier, and it was a double Dutch podium because Racing League Hub's Wesley Van Rens completed the race in 3rd. Grant Miller recovered well to 4th there, a bit of fortune on his side as well for drivers who ran out of fuel towards the end, but still you've got to be in the right place at the right time. The Phoenix Racing driver now will be all guns blazing in the second and final race of the season. Steve Rubino, 5th there, just behind for Hobo Racing, and it was Rob Gregg a further 11 seconds behind for Moonshiners Racing Club with that instant cost him dear. Charlie Stoffard, 7th in the end with that late pit stop ahead of Daniel Paul, and it was Sean Clark and Jan Nagy completing the Evo top 10, with a length going to Matthew Hunter and a lap down to James Fraser and Mark Wesley. Well, that's a quick recap of the finishing positions from race number 1, ladies and gentlemen. As always, subject to any stewards' inquiries. And, well, we are almost set then for race number 2. As the circuit falls silent very shortly, well, there's plenty to look forward to in race number 2. And we still need to answer the question, who is going to be your Evo champion? It looks like Wesley Van Rens still has maintained his lead, but Andre Montine is coming close. And, well, could we see the ZX's Soon Sport Acura spring a last-minute upset? Well, for all that and more, it's time to find out as we head to the grid. So as our drivers make their way onto the grid for the second and final time today and for the final race of the season in round 10 of season 8 of the Evolution Sim Racing GT3 Championship, powered by Trophy AI and brought to you on iRacing. You're here in Split B, and this is how they line up. With the top 15 inverted, Wesley Van Rens is your pole sitter overall and in Evo. He'll be joined on the front row of the grid with the Racing League Hub drive by Z-Axis Simsports Mathew Croft, your premier pole sitter. Scott Croshy starts third for Kamei GP2 Porsche, ahead of Road Turf Cure for MJK Sim Racing. There's Andrew Montine, who lines up on row number 3 for Z-Axis Simsports 9. He can steal the crown if he finishes ahead of Wesley Van Rens and far enough ahead. Christopher Starsmore starts 6th for Simcast Racing UK, looking to hold on to second in the Premier Championship, and he could do it by finishing where he starts. Jan Osberg begins this one 7th for Nifors at Glass Tech Racing, ahead of Mark De Vries for Sim Racing Team Lowlands. Completing your top 10 is the Briton of Ellis Racing B's Adam Baker and Nick Stubbe, there for Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing. In 11th is James Bostock for Kamei GP2 Porsche. Can he return to the podium last time this season? Well, Robin Milton will try to thwart him, starting 12th for Phoenix Racing, and in 13th and 14th it's Robin Aston and Menno Bloom respectively. Behind the Sumi GP2 and Sim Racing Team Lowlands drives, you've got DXT Motorsports James Howarth, who begins this one 15th after his win in race number 1, ahead of Sander Tabbas for Sim Racing Team Lowlands. Then we have Christian Malaskov for Rhino Academy 17th, ahead of Dale Williams for Vulcan Fasters but Glass Tech Racing. They've got the front bumper back on that Mercedes and they'll be hoping it stays there this time, with Grant Miller beginning this one 19th for Phoenix Racing, ahead of Rob McKee, who completes your top 20 for Phoenix Motorsports. We then have on row 11 Luke Bailey and Steve Rubino, followed up by on the 12th row of the grid Rob Gregg and Charlie Stoffard. Stoffard hoping he's got the fuel to get to the end of this one unscathed and not have to make a premature pit stop. Daniel Paul starts 25th ahead of Danny Veer, with the 14th row of the grid going to Sean Clark and Jan Nagy, and then Matthew Hunter and Dean Sheesby complete your top 30. On row number 16, it's Vincent Loader and Craig Tillerson, both looking to have a better end to race number 2, with James Fraser and Mark Wesley on row 17 ahead of Pete Piver and Jim Fox. Row 19 goes to Ricardo Luiz Pereira and James Pallett, with your final full row of the grid, completing the top 40, being Peter Duke and John Ludbrook, and last but not least, 41st, Klaas Vellen for Nifors at Glass Tech Racing. Well, that's the field, ladies and gentlemen, but as they make their way into the final corner, it's time for us to go racing for the second and final time today, and for the final time this season, and it is over to Wesley Van Rens to take us to the green for 30 minutes of racing action. And it's go, go, go for the final time this season as Wesley Van Rens sees the green light, and as they roar the way down towards turn number 1, well, Van Rens immediately getting a good start. There's Matthew Croft under a bit of pressure from Scott Kostrich. Further back, Roll Turfcure having a sleepy start. He's under big pressure from Kostrich and Montine as they come into the braking zone, but go all the way down and in towards the Constantino effect they go. Stoffard there having to step wide, albeit able to control the car. He's going to go all the way around the outside of everybody as they all come through. My good lord. Oh, Charlie Stoffard in the end, and that's going to be a roadblock there. And well, we didn't quite see what triggered it, but we see the aftermath as the whole field has to park its way through. Oh no! And that's going to be Matthew Hunter escorted into the barriers for the second time today. As quickly as in the first race, he's ended up in the barriers in the second. And as they come charging out, well, right now all the field has survived for the most part, but that's definitely been a bit of an upsetting start to the race. And for many, that's going to be one now with a bit of degree of consternation. As all the drivers make the way around, well, no safety cars here at Monza today as Wesley Van Rens continues to lead with Matthew Croft absolutely breathing down his neck. Scott Kostrich in third. Well, he's falling a little bit further back, albeit the two leaders. You can see how hard they're pushing each other already. And Croft right now has only got one thing on the mind, and that is, I've got to pass this Evo driver as soon as possible. Well, he swings one way, then the other. Van Rens surely he's not going to fight this one too hard because he's got a championship to win here, and he won't want to be fighting Croft for it. And well, Croft is allowed up the inside there, and Van Rens lets it go. But further back, Mark De Vries, he's up into 7th, and you see Robin Aston here and to keep Bostock and Stubbe at bay. As Bostock and Stubbe, it's almost as if the boxing gloves didn't come off after race number 1, and they've immediately gone back to boxing already as they charge their way out of Ascari. And well, Bostock still ahead of Stubbe by a small margin as they charge their way up towards turn 11. But now it's going to be single file formation, or is it? As that's Blermet versus Howarth, and it's going to the Mustang versus the Ferrari. It's going to be Ford versus Ferrari, but this time on Italian soil and in towards turn number 11. Looking around the outside there is Howarth. He's not going to be able to quite get that done. He'll find a long circumference difference there, and that naturally will put him behind, as Vincent Loader says, well, it's now my turn to play, and the German intervention comes in terms of the machinery, albeit the Dutchman here trying to help his fellow countrymen out in a way, albeit they're not of the same team, and well, that's all to his benefit of wanting to try and pick up 2 places. But will he be able to do so as they head on down? The answer is going to be he's going to go for it. He'll be on the inside into braking into the Redfield chicane. He will get ahead of Howarth, and well, he won't be able to get close enough there to Blum. But behind them, Christian Malaskov, well, he's close behind. Sander Tabbers has Charlie Stoffard for close company, and Stoffard was the man who went all the way around the outside of everybody at the start of the race, despite his brief excursion. A flash of lights from the car of Sander Tabbers. He's not happy about something that Malaskov has recently done, and well, we'll try and find out what exactly he's unhappy about in due course, as Menno Blum there trying to make a bit more progress, albeit Vincent Loader's going to assert that progress and say to him, no, that's my place, as Blum takes a bit too much curb there on the apex of turn 5, and that's going to drop him down the order. But coming in towards Lesbo 1 and Lesbo 2, it's definitely been a fast and furious start to this race. Peter Duke, who started from the very back of the field, well, he's got a bit of a damaged front end on that Acura, and that's not sliding him down. He's already up into 28th place. He's got 11 places gained, and he's looking to gain a few more shortly for Sheesby and Fox. But charging away through the right-hander, well, we've had something happen to Mathew Croft. Surely we've not had a premature retirement for Mathew Croft before he's even completed 2 laps. He was leading this race, and if so, that will completely upset his season. That will put him out of contention, no doubt about it, for 3rd place in the Premier Championship, let alone 2nd. However, we will see. It's better blown there side by side with Howarth coming through Ascari. My good lord, I thought that was going to end up with both of them going to the barriers there, but not quite. Howarth giving the space and avoiding the contact, and Blum going up on 2 wheels for a brief moment. Well, he's not in a motorbike, he's in a car, but I think he feels like he can 2-wheel it every step of the way as they come into the parabolic curve, and Malaskov still going defensive as Loader there trying to get around the outside, and Charlie Stoffard taking a very liberal sense of around the outside, as that's going to be Steve Rubino making his way through, and Stoffard drops behind Robin Milton, and Milton had a very poor stop and drops all the way back to 20th place, and it's down the recovery driver as they make the way down the start-finish straight. Well, I think they've all been told it's the last race of the season, because you can tell in the attitude they're all absolutely going for it, and the team KXR McLaren right now trying to get involved. But there in the foreground is the move from Howard trying to find his way out the inside of Blum. Can't find it, and well, in the battle of brakes, that Ferrari's just got a little bit more here, as that's very kiss and touch there between Stoffard and Rubino, and I think, well, the two of them having a bit of a coming together through turn number 2's apex. Rubino back ahead, but Stoffard very eager to make a way through, and right now going through like a ball in a china shop as they charged away out towards turn number 3. In the fact he's absolutely going for it, and well, I think Rubino right now will definitely be trying to dig in, but Stoffard says no you don't, I'm going to be on your inside. Into the left-hander he goes, and Charlie Stoffard does move up into 4th place, and Rubino is made to watch as they come out of the corner, and that's Grant Miller around in the rear of the picture, and that is huge because the Phoenix Racing driver, who needed a big result here in order to potentially be in the contention for the Euro Championship crown, will surely now that may consign him all the way to the back of the field, because we have lost Croft, we've lost Tillerson, we've lost Williams, we've lost Ludborough, and we've lost Velen, and it means that Grant Miller's all the way down in 33rd. In a car that's wounded, I can't see him doing any more racing unless he brings it into the pit lane and takes repair work, and that could mean that Grant Miller is out of the hunt for the Evo Championship, albeit we won't write him off, but it means the probability is much lower than it was previously, and this could now be a 2-way fight between Wesley Van Rens and Andrew Montine, and Van Rens is leading that at the moment. But as we look to our drives here, heading down towards Parabolica Curve, well, this is 2x2, it's Mark De Vries trying to keep Robin Aston behind, and James Bostock still battling with Nick Stubbe in the battle of the Porsches. Well, as we've lost Mark De Vries has gone out very wide indeed, and now, well, from one throw in 3 Porsches, it's now a menage a trois of Porsches as they make the way down the start-finish straight, and we'll look at this. Robin Aston right now looking one way, meanwhile you've got Bostock looking the other, and Stubbe tucking in behind, and Aston right now I think is thinking, okay, why didn't you give me a little bit of a push, Nick? And Nick's simply going, right now I need to make some progress, and I'm investing in the Bostock approach. But as he looks around the outside to the inside, oh no, that is, oh no, and it's all gone wrong. A blow at the inside of Aston, and well, as he comes on through, the two go to the grass there. Well, they find the weed, they chop up the turf, and as they return, well, they're going to drop a lot of places. And what I was about to say is Stubbe there trying to be cheeky, looking up the inside of Bostock into turn number 2. Bostock seeing it coming and saying, no, that's not happening, just firmly slamming the door shut in his face. And well, Stubbe right now definitely trying to use every trick in the book to pass James Bostock, and Bostock in turn using every trick in the book to defend against Stubbe. It's an absolutely brilliant rivalry between these two, and indeed, right now, Nick Stubbe finding his match, his equal match, and from them, well, let's look a bit further down the order, because here we've got James Fraser swinging to the outside, or what should I say is the inside coming down to turn number 4. That's very late on the brakes, and well, he will get it stopped, but not about making some contact to Matthew Hunter, and Hunter will go straight on. Now, he will gain the place as a result of that. Hunter's not too happy about it. He feels though he's been pushed wide for the move to be made, and we can see that Fraser immediately responding by giving the place back. Great gentlemanly behaviour there. He recognises what's happened. In the heat of the moment, I think he was probably thinking to himself, why should I give the place back? And then thinking, actually, I only made that corner because I tapped him. Well, as they make the way out, well, looking back here, that's Grant Miller in a way, and there's still a damage for Mustang carried on. He's not giving in here, and well, credit where it's due, as we did see James Howarth take an excursion wide. In fact, Howarth dropped all the way down the running order. Well, we've got plenty of incidents to take a look back with regards to the start of this race, ladies and gentlemen, and well, without further ado, I think we are going to take a look back at what exactly happened on the green flag race start with regards to Charlie Stoffard and the opening pair of corners. Well, here is your race start. We do seem to be having a slight technical issue at the moment with regards to replays, and we do apologise for this. It does seem as though our overlay is really glitching out at this point, so we are in replay mode at the moment, albeit it doesn't look like it, but I promise you we are. And what happened with Charlie Stoffard here down towards turn number 1 is the big question. Well, he made his way into the braking zone. Can we potentially get a view from above? Yes, we can. Now, under braking, Stoffard in the end, well, in fact, it's Stoffard going around the outside there, so seeing an opportunity, can we then get a lower camera? And, oh, goodness me, it all started before everyone was concentrating, and Stoffard coming into the back of Dale Williams, and, well, that sent everybody else around him, so that sort of explains what happened there. So I think Stoffard coming in expecting there to be space, and there wasn't, and, well, can we get another look back to the race start? I think we might be able to. Can we look at it from the Mercedes perspective of Dale Williams? Can we get a focus camera on that? I think we can, and, well, as he made his way away, this is how they all started, and well, it was a very long way to go starting, and well, in fact, tapping the rear there, Sander Tabber's Corvette in doing so did Williams, and we can see that really caused him to lose out as it was 5 wide for a brief moment. Down they came then towards turn number 1, and let's just see how the rest of it played out for Williams. So into the braking zone he went, 3 wide in front of him. Howarth there tucked on the inside of Loader, plus also Minna Blum, and in the end, well, the Constantina and Stoffard just coming into the scene, and well, we did see the MRC machine of Dean Sheesby get turned around, and that explains why we had the hold up from a lot of drivers further on down the order. But a bit later on, we did have a couple of incidents, including what happened to Grant Miller. This was on lap number 3. And this was coming up into turns 4 and 5, battling side by side. I think we caught this a bit earlier on. Well, we did, but we didn't quite see the story. Miller side by side there with Daniel Paul, and in the end, it looks like there was a small tap between the two. Oh, and there was a tap, and there was a further crunch, as that was the DXT Motorsports Porsche, Danny Veer getting called out, and well, that explains what happened to Grant Miller. James Pallett involved in the incident as well on lap number 3. Lap number 3 definitely being costly for many, and well, this was the Racing League Hub driver making his way for Ascari. Ascari's claimed a lot of drivers, and he claims the Ferrari 2962 of Pallett as he went on around there and well into the barrier. That's not uncommon. Then on lap number 4 we had this happen. Now this will be quite contentious from what I'm hearing. This is Vincent Loader and James Howarth battling for position. They came down into Rettifilio. Loader goes deep, Howarth cuts it back, looks around the outside, and a tap there as Loader tries to go racing, mounting the orange sausage curve, and Howarth went around, rolls back off the circuit, and that's why we then saw subsequently the excursion from Menno Blem and Robin Aston, who came to the scene of the incident. Can we get on board from their perspective? We can. This was Menno Blem's perspective as he came into the scene of the crash. And oh, goodness me, and Blome, they're trying to be the opportunist, trying to mount the curve, thinking that Aston was going to go deep, and Aston wasn't. He was taking evasive action, so I think a bit of a misunderstanding there from Blome, and well, he probably didn't know what was going on to the 2 cars ahead. Aston would have, and that's the problem when you're the 4th driver in a pack that's very close. You don't always see what the guy in front sees, so I think they'll all be talking about that one after the racing's done, and trying to talk through what exactly happened. But let's come back to your live racing, and as we do, we'll still more to come, no doubt about it. And well, that's Grant Miller taking a bit of a rallycross approach on the exit Lesbo 1, and a heavily damaged Mustang, but he's trying to struggle on. But with all of this happening, well, with Mathew Croft retiring from the race due to a technical issue as well, and the fact that everything just seemed to go away from Mathew Croft, and that's very unfortunate. It does mean, as our overlay does come back from the ether there, we are having some overlay issues. We do apologise for that, but we'll keep you posted as to everything that's happening as we find out. Well, Wesley Van Ren's here right now, your race leader, and could we see for our final race of the season an overall win for an Evo driver? Well, Scott Kotrich is going to try and burst the balloon of the Evo class, as we can see the Premier driver here getting close, but it's one thing to catch. The late great Murray Walker once said it's another thing to pass, albeit it is a little bit easier at Monza by comparison with other circuits potentially. We'll have to see. And also I do believe, ladies and gentlemen, just getting a bit of a check-in with regards to what's happened, and well, we have had confirmation that Peter Duke has had, well, in fact, Peter Duke's retirement from the race has been due to the damage that's picked up earlier on. But for Ricardo Luiz Pereira, he's having force feedback issues with regards to sim racing setup, and that is why he is having so many difficulties and has been a long way down the field. So if you're wondering where our Premier Champion-elect is, well, thankfully, this will become his drop score round. But he's not ending it on a high because he's having a lot of technical issues, and technical issues that are blighting him right at the end of the season. That's the last thing you want before you look towards Season 9, and particularly a promotion to the Pro class of Season 9. Coming back to what's on our screen, this is Nick Stubbe chasing after James Bostock. He's close, and well, these two have been close together. They're practically joined at the hip right now, these two Porsche drivers, in terms of how hard they're pushing each other on, and I think they're going to be pushing each other a bit more before all is said and done. Looking at one way, then the other is Stubbe. He can't quite find a way in at the moment. He is going to have to wait for the left-hander Ascari. They enter, and well, as they exit on out here, Bostock will still be ahead, albeit not by a huge margin, but the Carme GP2 Porsche machine tries to hold on as best it can. The Stubbe is right there as they tear their way past our static cameraman, and we look on board, looking back from the rear of the 166 Porsche as he heads in towards turn number 11, and Stubbe looks one way, then looks the other, and Bostock simply says, no you don't, I'm just going to defend this as much as possible, and Stubbe now will look for the cutback run here. He is going to get it, and that is going to give him all the momentum. They rub slightly as they come out onto the straight, but now it's going to be a drag race here, and who's got the greater speed? And we do believe that last time out it was Bostock had a little bit more straight line speed. However, we do have to consider that Stubbe did have a little bit of damage to some of the bodywork of his car, but this time as they come down, it's all equal between them, and Stubbe will be on the inside. He may get this done, albeit Bostock's going to be brave to look around the outside and to get the inside, and Stubbe tries to close the door in him, much like Bostock did 4 laps ago. However, Bostock was already there before the apex, and Stubbe did come across slightly, but no, he couldn't push his luck any further. So this is a really interesting battle between these two. It's Green, Loader and Tabbers right onto the back of them, but Bostock back ahead for now as they head through Curva Bazzano or Curva Grande and in towards Regia. Onto the brakes they go here, too wide, and Stubbe just giving enough room to breathe, nothing more, nothing less. That's going to put him into the clutches of Loader, who's now going to try and get the run in towards Lesbo 1. And here comes Vincent Loader up the inside. Sander Tabbers can't quite find a way in, meanwhile, as we ride aboard the dashboard here of the Corvette 06. But he might have an opportunity here. As you can see, Loader forcing Stubbe a little bit wide. Under braking they go, and Tabbers in the end deciding not to go for the move. I think that's a smart one there. Playing the game of waiting for Sim Racing Team Lowlands, because 2 wide into Lesbo 2 doesn't normally work. 3 wide, I think, is pushing your luck even more so. We'll charge in the way along then. Well, these drivers absolutely running nose to tail and heading upwards. Well, I've just had a reminder there from Martin Kenyon, and thank you for that, Martin. I do appreciate it. No drop round in the final round for this season, so therefore every point matters in this one, but there are drop scores earlier on in the season. Indeed, I'm getting a bit forgetful here, and I do apologise for that, but the point being that Ricardo Luiz Pereira wrapping things up before the need for this round, so therefore won't be under any mental pressure to try and get any more points. Those Tabbers makes his way onwards here. Everyone else right now, every point will matter all the way to the end of the season. Further on back, that's Robin Milton up the inside of Stoffard in towards Parabolica Curve, and as they make the way out to the right hander, well, Stoffard goes a bit deep. It'll feel as though he's been inconvenienced there, flashing its lights to signal that, and Milton's going to carry on here on the McLaren driver right behind him. Further back, this is Daniel Paul trying to battle hard with the Premier driver of Rob McGee as they come out to turn 11, and down the start for the straight they go, but he tucks his way back in behind, and at the moment at least no change. They stay exactly as they were, but in terms of potential change at the road, I believe we may have just had an opportunity at being sought by Roll Turf here on Andrew Montine for second place in the Evo off camera. We are keeping abreast of that also in the commentary booth, and we might be able to get a view of that very shortly. In fact, yes, we can, and I believe there's a brief connectivity issue for Montine that drops him behind Turf Cure, but here is your second place man in the Evo class, and right now, given that Wesley Van Rens is in front of him, there you can see Van Rens at the bottom of your camera. This does mean that right now at least we're not expecting that Andrew Montine will steal away the Evo Class Championship. It would go the way of Wesley Van Rens at this point, because every point is to play for in this round. As they come out to turn number 7 and down the run of the Serraglio stretch they go. Or is at this time Montine who's just trying to keep his head down and hoping that some fortune comes his way, and that his pace when able to get close to Van Rens lap after lap. Elsewhere, we have had Scott Kostrich take the lead of this race. Here is Kostrich, so no Evo leader overall at this time, albeit we do have the Ferrari of Van Rens right behind it. The Racing League Hub team are still pushing onwards, and they'll be hoping potentially the 99 can secure an overall win, if not an overall podium as a minimum, as they head in towards turn number 11. Further back, you can see the bottom end of the top 10 getting very close and tasty there, and that is the fight for 8th place. Bostock, Loader, Stubbe and Tabbers all together. Bostock is pulling away. As you can see, Vincent Loader there really playing the role of follow the leader. as they come into turn 11, and will Stubbe and Tabbers absolutely gluing themselves to the back of him as they make the way out of the right-hander at turn number 11, and that Corvette running wide there and trying to get all the speed on exit. He wants the double draft here in order to be able to try and look for the move on the pair of them, but the problem is, with the fact they've got the distant toe off of the back of Bostock's car, they're all going to be gaining the speed advantage, and with everyone getting the slipstream, nobody gets the slipstream. In fact, there's no additional benefit. Of course, the more cars you have in front of you, you do get a double or triple draft, but there does become a limit where it's diminishing returns, and Tabbers experiencing that as he makes his way through Rettivilio. From them looking to Ricardo Luiz Pereira right now, picking his way past Mark Wesley, and Mark Wesley in a slightly mangled rear wing Porsche. That wing's at a slight angle. Well, he's looking for a bit of a run back there in towards turn number 11, but Indian coming off of line as Luiz Pereira gains another place. But right now, this is really about just making it to the end of the race and not picking up any penalties, because remember, any penalties picked up by drivers coming out of this round, they will be applied as championship point deductions, given there's no more races for the season, and that's where you've got to be on your best behaviour all the way to the final checker flag where possible. We've got Grant Miller in the pit lane. That's a repair work on his Ford Mustang, but that's going to put him all the way back to the back of the Evo class, and that is going to be a frustrating run into the final 13 minutes of this race, plus a final lap for Miller. However, you never know what can happen until he gives it a try, and indeed, miracles have happened in the past, and I'm sure miracles will happen again at some point on the racing, whether it be today or in the future. But right now for Miller, it's definitely not gone his way, as we continue to look at Hunter here, just trying to chase after Howarth with Fox close behind. But from the trio here, fighting down all the way the order and fighting all the way down for 21st through to 23rd place. Well, from them, let's come all the way back to the front of the field. And, well, he was pulling away, but Scott Kostrich right now is no longer pulling away from Wesley Van Rens, and Van Rens does have Jan Usberg close behind. And Usberg right now, well, he's definitely going to be the fan favourite here in this battle for many, for the simple reason he's had so much bad luck this season. Indeed, I can imagine if he walked under a ladder at this point or had a black cat walk across him in the road to traditions for bad luck in the United Kingdom, not quite sure if they apply it in Sweden. I have to ask him later. Well, they would think he'd be giving him good luck instead, because Wesley Van Rens pulls the inside here, and I think that's the bleed speed rather than look for a move. And now here comes Osberg up the inside. Jan Osberg here saying, look, if you're not going to fight this, let me go. Then here comes Andrew Montine, and suddenly this takes a very different complexion as we ride on board the front bumper of the number 7 ZX Sport Acura, and we can see how close he is to the back there of Van Rens. But as they make the way into the braking zone for Regia, well, it's going to be Osberg on the inside here, and he's going to look to side up the inside. That's very late on the brakes in Jan Osberg, and he gets it done. Up into second he goes, and right now the Knife Horse at Class Tech Racing Machine is on its way. But speaking of its way, we've got a battle for first in the Evo class on its way to us as they make the way through Lesbo 1. And Van Rens right now trying to hold on. Now, he doesn't need to beat Montine in order to take the championship crown. If he finishes one place behind him, he will still become Evo champion. But for Van Rens, will understand, but he won't be wanting to do the quick maths. He might have one of the team managers talking to him from the pit wall right now and saying, you don't need to fight this too hard. But as he makes his way onwards, well, right now, it is going to be them. Oh, goodness me. And what about this? Well, right now, if you were to stick a PlayStation controller in, you'd be saying player 3 has joined, because Royal Turf Cure is getting close here. We could have a freeway fight for the final spot on the overall podium, and it's going to be 3 Evo drivers fighting for that, plus also class honours in terms of how they step on their podium, and it depends on where they finish. It could have big permutations in the Evo Class Championship, because if Turf Cure can get into the mix, things will get a bit dicier if Van Rens was to finish behind both Montine and Turf Cure. But meanwhile, well, we're talking about the good luck he hasn't had, and more bad luck there for Jan Osberg. I can't believe it. He's on his way to chase down second place, and in the end, he's backwards there into the parabolic barrier. Well, as he brings it back together, that's Sander Tabbers coming on through, battling side by side with Robin Milton as Osberg steps wide. Let's try and understand what's happened to him very shortly to Osberg, but that's definitely gone the wrong way and not the way he's wanted to go whatsoever. And, well, Osberg cannot get a break no matter what happens, it would seem. But as our drivers carry on here, will still more to come, no doubt about it, in terms of the battles. And that's going to be Tabbers ahead of Robin Milton, just about under braking as he tries to hold on to 10th place overall, or what is in Premier Class, 7th place. But in terms of what's happened, we take a look at what happened to Jan Osberg only months ago, and here's the quick replay to explain, ladies and gentlemen. With that, this was at the starter laps. This was the fighting they had right at the beginning of the lap, but then what was the battling they had at the end of the lap, I hear you ask? Well, let's find out how that all played out, because this is Osberg being brave, but where did it all go wrong for him? And we're coming into the corner then for Osberg, making his way on through. and through Parabolica. I suspect this is going to be too much speed. The car snaps one way, then the other, onto the runoff area and sideways into the gravel. Just avoids the barrier in the end. The original camera angle we had was a bit deceiving, but Jan Rosberg just carrying too much speed and a bit too eager to try and run away with that second place and chase down Scott Kostrich for the overall win and class win with it. But as we come back to your live racing pictures, we'll still more time to go. We've got 8.5 minutes left on the clock, plus one more lap after the clock strikes. And from them, we come back to your Evo lead battle. And Van Rens here with Montine right behind him. And I can see that Bruma Gaming cheering on Van Rens. And right now, Wesley will be hoping this title is finally going to come his way. And again, just to reiterate, we believe, based on how they finished in race number 1, with Montine taking class victory and Van Rens finishing third in that race, Van Rens can afford to finish one place behind Montine at the moment, potentially 2, but no more than that. And as they charged away down the start-finish straight, well, right now, Van Rens won't give up this place if he can afford it. Instead, he would prefer to win on the circuit and guarantee his champion status outright. But heading on down, Montine looking up the inside here, and the Alexis Sim Sports driver is going to go for it. Now, remember, this is a slipstream circuit, so being the leader right now doesn't mean you're going to be leading at the end. However, Van Rens having a nightmare run through the chicane, and Adam Baker giving him a little bit of a push along to say, go on, pal, you can go forward. Well, that Ferrari, they're stumbling, and Van Rens completely out of sorts. Well, Mantine's now running away as he starts to open up an 8/10 of a second gap, and Adam Baker here might intervene. You can see Van Rens, in fact, pulling it on the defensive line, practically trying to say to Baker, please don't pass me. Baker, however, wants to outbrake that Ferrari. He can't quite do so. So right now, Van Rens being passed. It was a smooth move by Andre Montine, but Van Rens under a little bit of mental pressure now. He's got to get himself back into the game, and what he's got to think to himself is, okay, I've lost the place, but I haven't lost the championship. I only need to finish directly behind him, and I guarantee it. Roll turf cure, well, he's got Baker in front of him, and the Dutchman here, well, he could have a role to play, and well, he's going to follow Baker as close as possible and see what happens next. But further back, going from one Dutchman to another, Vincent Loda here, still tucked in behind James Bostock, with Nick Stubbe a bit further up the road. So Stubbe has finally found his way through, albeit it's taken the best part of 11 laps for Stubbe to pass Bostock. That's how close their battling has been for 5th and 4th place in the Premier class, but fantastic battling between them. And as they wind their way for Ascari, well, right now it will be the proverbial calm before the storm. Further back in Evo, Daniel Paul and Rob Gregor fighting here, and that's Paul going quite slowly there down the run of Serraclio, so I wonder if he's picked up an automated penalty for a misdemeanor, because Greg just sweeps on through there and takes 6th place off him in Evo, 16th place overall, so a quick swap of places there, and a happy one at that. But in terms of class positions, there they are on the left-hand side of your screen. And these class positions are right now are definitely continuing to shape up quite considerably as we've still got more time to go. Coming back to Bostock, well, he's under pressure from Loda as they charge their way down towards turn number 1. Vincent Loda on the inside here in the 133 versus the 166. The battle of the two Porsches. On the anchors they go. Bostock's got the toe, however Loda's got the inside, and well, Vincent Loda is going to make it nice and smooth under braking and moves up the position as that's a lot of gravel being kicked up. What's happened there? I believe Adam Baker's had a bit of a moment, and in fact with the gravel that's coming down, Loda hasn't had the best exit, so Bostock comes back at him here, and well, this battle resumes then, going up towards Regia. As they charged away in towards that braking zone, Bostock trying to squeeze Loda as much as possible, but Loda has made it alongside him, so he will be granted the right to access the space, and through they go, and Vincent Loda makes another move up the inside into a chicane, and this time he'll be hoping he's made it stick, and the answer is yes, he has, as Jan Rosberg, only 3.5 seconds behind, is now on a charge and trying to come back at them, as we do see Steve Rubino a bit further in the rear of the picture. He's crept up to 5th place in the Evo class, so he'll be happy with that. However, he's got Charlie Stoffard next to pass, and he's 1.3 seconds up the road, and Stoffard is matching him for pace, if not surpassing him. So therefore, right now for Steve Rubino, he'll be hoping he can dig in the final 5 minutes, just get that pace together again, and perhaps go on the attack and pounce for one more position right at the close. However, as these drivers continue to make their way onwards, well, we do look back up the order, and Adam Baker has fallen from being in between all the Evo drivers for the top 5 places to the bottom of the top 5. He is 5th currently overall. 2nd place in the Premier class, and he's got Nick Stubbe right behind him. And well, these are exceptional circumstances, and they are very strange times right now, because your top 5 is Scott Kostrich, your Premier leader, and then you've got your top 3 of Evo of Andrew Montine, Wesley Van Rens and Roel Turfgear, and then you've got your 2nd place Premier driver Adam Baker, who's had a bit of a fall down the order, but he's trying to get back in there. And I believe that gravel you saw kicked up coming out to turn number 2 only moments ago was where Adam Baker had a run wide, and that cost him the place to Roel Turfgear, and that's why he's down in his 5th position at the moment. But down the start finish straight they go in towards turn number 1, and all of them at the line astern at the moment, no change. And I can imagine at this point that all the drivers here, there's a bit of sparks fly there, and Nick Stubbe getting very close to the rear left quarter panel of Baker. Well, that's the tap. They won't need more than that, because that can lead to significant suspension damage if it knocks the wheel out of alignment, and that could be it in terms of the race. We've got 4 minutes left on the clock. We are on lap number 15 as well. Are we going to get a 17th lap in here is perhaps a question we should now be asking. My gut feeling is, based on the quick mathematics I'm doing in my head, yes, we definitely will get a 17th lap. Will we see any more instances where drivers don't have enough fuel to get to the end on their own volition? And if so, do they have to come into the pits? Because if so, that is going to throw a big spanner in the works. And, well, if you were Wesley Van Rens, you would have overfilled that car. You can't afford to lose that. You would have overfilled it with an extra lap's worth of fuel to guarantee you're getting there, regardless of what else happens, for the simple reason, losing out to fuel right at the end of a 30-minute sprint to see your championship, that's not what you want to do. I'm not saying he's going to have that happen to him, but if I was in his shoes and if I was in the team's shoes, they would have put the fuel in whether he would have liked it or not. As he comes on through the left into right of Ascari, well, right now we will see how it's all going to play out for them as Robin Milton battling with Jan Osberg. And Osberg up another place now, up into 10th place overall, 8th, in fact 7th in Premier. Osberg is flying right now. He is not pulling any punches. However, Robin Milton is staying close as they head up towards turn number 11. Now, as we do say hello there to Crofty232692 in the YouTube chat, saying that gutted is an understatement, lost connection and threw the season away. Thanks for an amazing season of broadcast. It's been awesome to watch, and well, thank you, Matthew, for what has been a fantastic set of drives from yourself. It's not the way we wanted to see it end, no doubt about it, but at the same time, you've been one of the stars of the Premier class, and I know it won't feel as though it's going to be a consolation at the moment, but no, you've definitely put on some superb racing all the way through the season, including that race 1 drive here today, going all the way through the back of the field to finish inside the top 15. But speaking of finishing on a high out on circuit, Sander Tabbers looking around the outside of Robin and Milton here under braking, and well, as he comes through the corner, that's going to be absolutely smooth as they come. Lovely move there. That's like clockwork. If we wanted a textbook example of how you go outside to inside through the Vesfilio chicane, Sander Tabbers has just given you that. Put that in the textbooks, ladies and gentlemen, because that's what they're going to be referring to going forward. That was absolutely smooth for 11th place overall, and well, Tabbers definitely delivering as he pushes that Corvette onwards. But coming in towards turns 4 and 5, well, now he'll chase after Usberg, and hopefully he's got a little bit more in the tank as we're on the penultimate lap of racing for the season. Charlie Stoffard trying to close up with Steve Rubino further behind, and Rubino really struggling on corner exit there coming out of Regia. You notice the way he's pulling the car. He's practically siphoning at the steering wheel to get it away from the exit curb and the gravel. I wonder whether he's having some difficulty with power oversteer in low gear coming up through these chicanes. It just looks as though the car not in a happy place coming out of that chicane, and very odd behaviour, but then again, might be some damage on the car we don't know about, or perhaps an issue. But as he heads up towards turns 8 through to 10, definitely very aggressive pulling it away from that curb. Normally most drivers will ride that exit curb, but not Rubino. But from him then, let's go back up the field, and we come to our 4th place driver of Roll Turf Gear. He's now got Adam Baker for close company as he makes way into the braking zone at 4 turn number 11. Baker straight up the inside and no hesitation whatsoever, pulls the trigger, and Turf Gear goes, okay, it's time to play then. And as they roll the way out to the right hander, they'll be side by side here down the start for this straight as we go on to our final lap of racing for the season. Well, it's your leader, Scott Crosstridge, up the road. He has got Andre Montine for company, but here we see Baker versus Turf Gear side by side. But Turf Gear, I don't think he's going to have the overspeed here and has to give way to the McLaren under braking. As they come down onto the anchors, well, looking further back, Sander Tabbers getting close and closer to Osberg's Porsche. He's not going to be able to look for the move at this time, but he does get very, very firmly in the wheel track, so move could potentially come later on in this lap. Further down the order, heading in towards Parabolica Curve to start their final lap shortly. That is going to be Ricardo Luiz Pereira going around the outside, 2 drives, and Yanagi goes around much like what happened to his team at Osberg. Well, it's gone wrong there at Parabolica, and the Nifels at Glass Tech Racing Porsches not liking that corner at high speed whatsoever. And well, that's going to make him absolutely fuming. But meanwhile, come back to the front of the field, and suddenly we have a new twist in the tail, because Scott Crosstridge right now is under pressure at Andre Montine, and Montine is trying to take an overall win here as he comes out of Lesbo 2. The Evo driver right now, he knows it won't be enough to swing the championship in his way, we believe provisionally, but if you could end this season on an overall win, that will feel like a statement. Well, he's all over the back then of the leader as they head in towards Ascari for the final time. If he can get a good run through here, it will then be a battle to Parabolica. Crosstridge Kate's an absolutely smooth line there, Montine close, but understeers a little bit wide. as he comes through turn number 9. That's going to cost him the pace here, and in fact cause the gap to open up to the best part of 3.5 tenths. They head onwards then towards Parabolica Curve. I think Kostic might have this. It'll be one braking zone and a dream away for Kostic to take that win here today. But through that right-hander they go, and as they do, Montine's going to be glued right behind him all the way to the end. It's a slow run out the corner. Montine's all there. It's going to be a drag race to line, but which way is it going to go? Oh, it's going to be absolute marginal, and in the end, and it's going sideways into the wall, but Scott Kostic gets it in the end, takes victory ahead of Andre Montino, who's your Evo winner. Wesley Van Rens comes home second in Evo, third overall, and I think that's it. He has secured the Evo Championship, subject to standings updates. Adam Baker takes fourth ahead of Roll Turf Crew, rounds off the Evo podium in fifth, and it'll be Nick Stubbe sixth ahead of Christopher Starsmore seventh. Vincent Loader, he takes eighth for the end of this race ahead of James Bostock, with Jan Osberg completing the top 10. Sander Tavis finishes the 11th, couldn't quite find his way past the Swede at the end. Robin Milton was 12th, Charlie Stoffard at 13th ahead of Steve Rubino, and Rob McKee completing your top 15 in a dramatic end to the race there. Rob Gregg, Daniel Paul, James Howarth, Dean Sheesby missed the front bumper there, and then Sean Clark completing your top 20, and Robin Aston 21st just behind, with Matthew Hunter and Ricardo Luiz Pereira coming on through. We then got a bit of a gap to this man, Jan Nagy, but give him a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. He's 10th in Evo, and he's given it his all despite a late spin coming out to turn number 11 on the penultimate lap. Grant Miller as well will in the end having to settle for what is, well, the runner-up spots in the Evo Class Championship. Has not been his end to the season. The last 3 rounds have just not favoured the Ford Mustang driver whatsoever, but he's put up a brilliant title fight all the way through. Mark De Vries there, 26th. We've still got a couple more drives to make it to the checkered flag, including Mark Wesley as he comes on through the final corner. We've got a car crawling along there. That's James Fraser in a wounded Moonshiners Racing Club Porsche, I believe. Well, there's Wesley coming to line, and then we will have James Fraser in 28th place. Well, in fact, not damaged out. I think that might have just been a glitch on our cameras. And then we've got Danny Veer, the last of our lead lap finishers, 29th. He's going to celebrate as he comes on through, and, well, he writes the car off there as well. So the team will have to get out the checkbooks in order to buy him a new one, or whatever car he's going to in Season 9. But Danny Veer, in the end, completing your finishing positions on the lead lap. As Andrew Montine, well, he does some donuts there down the start-finish straight, celebrating the end of the season. And we believe he's finished just shy of the championship crown. He's runner-up in Evo. However, either way, he'll be celebrating because he's had a brilliant second half of the season. He's come flying through the order, and as he celebrates with donuts, and we look to the blimp camera there, let's take a look at those race results subject to Eddie Stewart's inquiries. And here they are for race number 2, ladies and gentlemen, starting off with the overall results. Well, as we can see, after what was an absolutely superb race number 1, race number 2 has not disappointed either, and Scott Kostic, your winner overall and in Premier for Carme GP2 Porsche by only 33 thousandths over your Evo winner, Andre Montine for Zadaxis Sim Sports. And back-to-back Evo wins here today. It wasn't quite enough for the Romanian, we believe, because just behind him, Wesley Van Rens ran up in Evo, added to his 3rd place in the first race, and we believe that Wesley Van Rens has just snuck away with that Evo Championship crown, again, subject to the final points tallies being accrued. Then it was in 4th place to Adam Baker for LS Racing B, ahead of Road Turf Courier, who completed the Evo podium. Adam Baker was your 2nd place Premier driver, and then we did see in 6th place overall your podium finisher, your 3rd podium finisher in the Premier class, Nick Stubbe for Vulcan and Fasters by Glass Tech Racing. Christopher Starsmore was 7th for Simcast Racing UK, ahead of Vincent Loader, with the Sim Racing Team Lowlands driver enjoying a good scrap once again, where Starsmore had a bit of a quiet race by comparison. And then it was James Bostock and Jan Osberg completing your top 10 for Carme GP2 Porsche and Nifels at Glass Tech Racing respectively. And I can imagine Osberg will be gutted in the fact he had that mistake at Parabolica Curve when he had the pace to win this race, but it didn't quite work out. Best of the rest in 11th was Sander Tavis for Sim Racing Team Lowlands, ahead of Robin Milton, the Phoenix Racing driver, just finishing behind the Corvette in the end, couldn't quite find his way through. Charlie Stoffard, 4th place in the Evo class, 13th on the overall field for Team KXR in a bit of a bruised McLaren, and Steve Rubino there round off the Evo top 5 with 14th place, but the Hobo Racing driver just not having the pace here at Monza. Rob McKee was 15th for DXT Motorsports, the last of the top 15 finishers, ahead of Rob Gregg, with Daniel Paul, James Howarth, Dean Sheesby and Sean Clark completing the overall top 20. And outside the top 20, let's not forget about Robin Aston nor Matthew Hunter, 21st and 22nd. And as we come all the way out to the bottom end of our lead lap finishers, we can see there our 29th place finisher, Danny Veer, last of the lead lap finishers with a lap down to Jim Fox, Minna James Pallet, and also further afield there we also did see 4 laps down to Pete Piver. Unfortunate retirements and commiserations to Luke Bailey, Christian Malaskov, Peter Duke, Mathew Croft, Dale Williams, Craig Tillotson, John LeBret and Klaas Vellum. And as we come on to the individual class finisher positions, we start with the Premier class. As always, Scott Kostrich there taking a victory. And I believe, unless I'm mistaken, his first victory of the season. Let me just double check that. Yes, it was his first victory of the season, only his second podium of the season, because he has had a podium in one of our sprint races previously. But his first win of the season, what a job from him in the 101. And behind the Scotsman was the Briton of Adam Baker for LS Racing B and Nick Stubbe for Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing, completing that podium, with Adam Baker making a surprise return to the podium as well, and Nick Stubbe carrying on his run of podiums since Imola. Christopher Starsmore, 4th place there for Simcast Racing UK, and we believe with that result it's enough to guarantee him 2nd place in the Premier Class Championship, so well done to him for that runner-up result in the Championship, with Vincent Noda 5th there for Sim Racing Team Lowlands, an ever-present threat in this race today. James Bostock 6th for Carme GP2 Porsche, ended his season on a very feisty 6th place, ahead of Jan Osberg for Nifos at Glass Tech Racing. Now Sander Tabbers, Robin Milton and Rob McKee completing your Premier Top 10. James Howarth, best of the rest in length, not a race he wanted it to end on after the great race 1, but he went from the win of race 1 to a length in the 2nd, but still, that's the way it goes. And there was Moonshiners Racing Club. Dean Sheesby's had an unfortunate day today, but the Acura driver there will end his season on a 12th place ahead of Robin Aston, with Ricardo Luiz Pereira 14th with force feedback issues, but still crowned your champion in class, and Mark De Vries 15th there for Sim Racing Team Lowlands. Last of the lead lap finishers was Danny Veer in 16th ahead of Jim Fox, Menno Blum and James Pallet, all a lap down each, 4 laps down to Pete Piver, and then we did have the retirements, of course, for Luke Bailey, Christian Malaskov, Peter Duke, Mathew Croft, Dale Williams, Craig Tillotson, John LeBret and Klaas Vellum. Then coming to the Evo class, last but by no means least, and as we can see here, Andre Montine, your race winner. Back-to-back victories today for the ZX's SimSports driver. What a pair of results for him. He'll be absolutely pleased as punch for that. Wesley Van Ren's 2nd there for Racing League Hub and taking home that crown, we believe, ahead of Road at Turf Cura, 3rd place at MJK Sim Racing, and what a podium indeed. 3 absolutely brilliant drivers there for a brilliant end, and a double Dutch podium again as well for the remaining at the top of it. Charlie Stoffard, the Briton, 4th there for Team KXR, fighting for a podium but couldn't quite get there, but he was 4 seconds clear of Steve Rubino, and behind the Hobo Racing driver to round off the Evo top 10, Rob Gregg, Daniel Paul, Sean Clark, Matthew Hunter and Jan Nagy, with Daniel Paul and Rob Gregg both carrying on as they've done so from Imola, but a shout out there to Sean Clark for getting one of his better results of the season with that 8th place in class. Behind Jan Nagy in best rest position 11th, Grant Miller, the Phoenix Racing driver, coming away from this one with a lot of damage to the Ford Mustang. It's not been the end of the season he's wanted, and you've got to feel for him. He'll be absolutely gutted how it's ended in despair, with Mark Wesley and James Fraser finishing the race all on the lead lap. So 13 starters in that class, all finishing the race, all on the lead lap, and that brings us to a close in terms of our run through the race results, ladies and gentlemen. And goodness me, as the circuit falls silent, Monza's definitely delivered today, no doubt about it. But what did our drivers have to think about magnificent Monza is the question, and what do they have to think about their season campaigns? Well, for all that and more, we will be back in approximately 9 to 10 minutes time for our post-round interviews. It's a bumper edition, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go anywhere, you won't to miss them. We will see you in a short time.
Of the green flag, and there we go. Tristan immediately getting the jump on his teammate Luke Lucchese, and he's going to have to go the long way around the outside. It's not done yet because Luke will have that favoured inside line going into turn 1 side by side. Has had a good start. He's up 2 places around the outside of Luke Lucchese, 3 wide there. The blue Acura on the inside. Hayden Phoenix Miller has gone from 4th to 1st in the matter of 1 braking zone there, and he will carry these drivers now down in toward turn 4. Great start there for the debutant who had strong qualifying pace, and now he might be up with an opportunity of making that stick if he can get the clean air in the next, and Plug could have a good run here. Let's ride on board. How does the Noblica defend going into the chicane? Is Plug going to do that tactic where you just stay there right into the last, and Obliga moves over to the entry into the chicane. Good driving, that's a wobble by Tristan, and he's off the road. He's going to lose the position. Is he going to stick up the inside? No. And is Justin Eloff going to fancy his chances? No, he stays.
Watkins Glen, and to have only 9 minutes before we reset and go again gives, I think, the drivers a bit of a moment to pause for thought, because how are you going to manage this, especially if you're 3 wide down the main straight? Humphrey, Leskinen, Catrali all don't get out Raj Harper either. 2 by 2 into the opening corner. Outside line taken for Humphreys. Also a little bit of time on the exit though, as it looks like it's a better run for Kalle Leskinen, the leader now in that pro class, as they run their way up the hill through 2 and 3. It looks like Raz Harper's got the best run, and now we could see both elite drivers come through on both pro drivers. So they'll have to get it done on the outside of the bus stop, and that is going to be more than difficult to do. Who's going to get the selection? That could be crucial. 1 hour will be on the clock as the pace car is about to roll back in. GT3, so many of them about to get racing. GT4 just in behind as well. A brand new season is about to get going here at the Sachsenring. It's ESR's GT European Championship, and Anton Kalo will lead us to green for the opening time this season. Jason Baxter and Jenny Tehar just in behind as the lights are on. The green flag flies, and there's a couple of drivers pulling out immediately of the pack. 3 wide, nearly 4 wide into the opening turn, with Denzel Clarkson trying to find an inside line. Jenny Tehar as well.
More, he's got Craig Hewlett in P11 just coming down the pit lane now with Henry Garcia, so this is going to end up being quite a tight battle. If they're going to also have Pedro to deal with, he would just be coming out in front of them. Yeah, he's a little bit further down the road, so these two are going side by side through a very, very tricky section. Looks like Craig's got the better of it done for the moment.
Seconds in the pit strategy, whether it's a 20-minute overcut, 20-minute undercut, we'll have to wait and see. Meanwhile, Jenny Tehar and Jason Baxter are fighting it out for the lead of the overall race. Baxter trying to make his way through. It'll have to be an outside line into turn 2, where a GT4 sits on the racing line. That's the number 14 that they have to negotiate their way around. But as they run through turns 2 and through turn 3, they don't have to now worry about that GT4 any longer, and can continue working their way down a long way. And it can help you build in things like GT3, maybe some prototype cars as well. But yeah, it's so impressive to see him doing so well at the front of the field. Joe Glass getting himself, his teammate I should mention, as I said. Oh, still tries into that. That's a send from Dave Van Dam very late on the brakes into turn 1, but he's got it stopped from the apex. That's an incredible move. Very, very surprising for Joe Glass to find a car on his inside there, but effective for Dave Van Dam, and he has caught Joe Glass napping.
Of the green flag, and there we go. Tristan immediately getting the jump on his teammate Luke Lucchese, and he's going to have to go the long way around the outside. It's not done yet, because Luke will have that favoured inside line going into turn 1 side by side. Has had a good start. He's up 2 places around the outside of Luke Lucchese. 3 wide there, the blue Acura on the inside. Hayden Phoenix Miller has gone from 4th to 1st in the matter of 1 braking zone there, and he will carry these drivers now down in toward turn 4. Great start there for the debutant, who had strong qualifying pace, and now he might be up with an opportunity of making that stick if he can get the clean air in the next, and Plug could have a good run here. Let's ride on board. How does the Obliga defend going into the chicane? Is Plug going to do that tactic where you just stay there right into the last, and Obliga moves over to the entry into the chicane. Good driving, that's a wobble by Tristan, and he's off the road. He's going to lose the position. Is he going to stick up the inside? No. And is Justin Eloff going to fancy his chances? No, he stays.
Watkins Glen, and to have only 9 minutes before we reset and go again. Gives, I think, the drivers a bit of a moment to pause for thought, because how are you going to manage this, especially if you're 3 wide down the main straight? Humphrey, Leskinen, Katrali all don't get out Raj Harper either. 2 by 2 into the opening corner. Outside line taken for Humphreys. Also a little bit of time on the exit though, as it looks like it's a better run for Kalle Leskinen, the leader now in that pro class, as they run their way up the hill through 2 and 3. It looks like Raz Harper's got the best run, and now we could see both elite drivers come through on both pro drivers. So they'll have to get it done on the outside of the bus stop, and that is going to be more than difficult to do. Who's going to get the switch? That could be crucial. Now will be on the clock as the pace car is about to roll back in. GT3, so many of them about to get racing. GT4 just in behind as well. A brand new season is about to get going here at the Saxon Ring. It's ESR's GT European Championship, and Anton Kalo will lead us to green for the opening time this season. Jason Baxter and Jenny Tehar just in behind as the lights are on. The green flag flies, and there's a couple of drivers pulling out immediately of the pack. 3 wide, nearly 4 wide into the opening turn, with Denzel Clarkson trying to find an inside line. Jenny Tehar as well.
More, he's got Craig Hewlett in P11 just coming down the pit lane now with Henry Garcia, so this is going to end up being quite a tight battle. If they're going to also have Pedro to deal with, he would just be coming out in front of them. Yeah, he's a little bit further down the road, so these two are going side by side through a very, very tricky section. Looks like Craig's got the better of it done for the moment.
Seconds in the pit strategy, whether it's a 20-minute overcut, 20-minute undercut, we'll have to wait and see. Meanwhile, Jenny Tehar and Jason Baxter are fighting it out for the lead of the overall race. Baxter trying to make his way through. It'll have to be an outside line into turn 2, where a GT4 sits on the racing line. That's for number 14, so they have to negotiate their way around. But as they run through turns 2 and through turn 3, they don't have to now worry about that GT4 any longer, and can continue working their way down a long way, and it can help you build in things like GT3, maybe some prototype cars as well. But yeah, it's so impressive to see him doing so well at the front of the field. Joe Glass getting himself, his teammate I should mention, as I said. Oh, still tries into that. That's a send from Dave Van Dam very late on the brakes into turn 1, but he's got it stopping the apex. That's an incredible move. Very, very surprising for Joe Glass to find a car on his inside there, but effective for Dave Van Dam, and he has caught Joe Glass napping.
Of the green flag, and there we go. Tristan immediately getting the jump on his teammate Luke Lucchese, and he's going to have to go the long way around the outside. It's not done yet because Luke will have that favour.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for our post-round interviews. Now, we've got a bit of a bumper edition here. We've got 4 interviews already queued up, many of them Evo class, because some of you may recall that earlier in the season we had a round, I believe it may have been at Sebring, where we only had Premier drivers. So it's only fair, with 4 interviews this evening, we do try and get a lot of Evo drivers in, and thankfully we've had many volunteer their time. We may also be getting a word, I believe, from our Premier Championship leader. We're just waiting for an update on whether he's available this evening. If so, we will try and fit him in as well, that being Ricardo Luiz Pereira. But without further ado, we're going to come from the fault of one champion to another, because we're going to be speaking to the number 99 driver, your provisional Evo champion of Wesley Van Rens, as he joins me now in the interview room. Good evening to you, Wesley. And well, provisionally, you've done it. How does it feel to be our Evo champion for Season 8 of the GT3 Championship?
It feels really, really, really great. It's been a long time coming. Had a couple of great starts to the season, and now finally managed to do it.
Oh, Wesley, it's so great to hear that happiness in your voice and that relief as well. They go hand in hand. I mean, coming into tonight, you were leading by a reasonable margin of 35 points or so. So it wasn't as though the pressure was massively on you. But anything can happen at Monza, anything can happen in the season finale. How did you come into this round? Were you thinking to yourself, I've got to win, the pressure's on me, or was it, I just take each race as it comes, try not to put pressure on myself? Take us through it.
Yeah, mainly the last thing, not to put too much pressure on myself, because before the whole season has been really close. I think the biggest margin 3 races before that was like 11 points or something, so that was way more pressure on it. And when last week I got that 25-point gap, I knew, okay, going into Monza, just need to stay out of trouble, especially turn 1. And then managed to do that really well, pick our battles. I got 3rd in the first race in the in class. Managed to get 15th as well for the reverse grid on the last lap, which was absolutely amazing for that second race to just be out of trouble in the lead and then just bringing it home basically, not fight too much. And then once I knew it was like the top 3 of the Evo class was that much ahead of the other ones, I knew it was just keep it clean, don't crash it, and bring it home.
Well, a very sensible approach there, and I think that mature approach you've taken is definitely why you've brought this crown home. I mean, that's something which we've seen throughout the season. We'll come to that shortly, your season. But with regards to the racing today, of course, on home soil with regards to your car in the form of the Ferrari. So therefore, one of those scenarios whereby, I mean, it's always going to go well at Monza, a Ferrari, but we saw you going well from the outset. Decent qualifying points, putting yourself 4th on the Evo grid, 19th overall.
Yeah, 19th overall was like, I was like a little bit shocked because I was right in the middle of the pack. So it was like, hopefully it wouldn't be too bad into turn 1. Qualifying itself, I think, was really close between P2, 3 and 4th in the Evo class as well. It's like, I think the difference was only 300 or something. And at that time, when I said the lap was 3rd in Evo class, I was like, okay, this is all good. I don't see Andre anywhere near. And then all of a sudden he puts in the 47.8 or something to go pole. I was like, okay, I need to I need to bring the best out of me in the first race to get some going. But I had a lot of Premier drivers fighting around me and in front of me, so I had to be really careful not to get any damage mainly in that first race. And I managed to do that pretty well, luckily.
Well, may not have been the qualifying points you wanted, but then going into the race, like you say, really staying out of trouble. I mean, take us through that as well. Driving around here, you've got plenty of Premier drivers around you, plus also some Evo drivers. Everyone's looking fast, but you've got to stay close to get the slipstream, but you don't want to get too close because of the risk of getting in trouble. I mean, was there a way you wanted to approach it, or was it just every time somebody got close to you, almost saying, can you please go away? I need my social distance. I don't want to end up in a barrier.
Yeah, I had that a little bit, especially when also there was a couple of cars crashing up in the scarring chicane, being on the left and being on the right, but it was like, please don't crash in front of me, please. But I decided just when, as soon as they got alongside me going into turn 1 or whatever, I just decided, okay, just let them go, brake early, don't fight them. It's not worth it with the position that you're in, and that was the main approach, really, and just staying out of trouble. That was all I could think of for that first race.
Well, I think an approach that definitely worked, no doubt about it. And in the end, moving your way to a 15th place finish, 3rd place in class, but more importantly, reverse grid pole position for race number 2. I mean, starting on pole for race 2, you must have thought to yourself, right, all I've got to do now is not make any mistakes. But very quickly, you found Mathew Croft come roaring up behind you. I mean, he wasn't slowing down. And when he disappeared, Scott Kostrich waited to do the same.
Yeah, it was like, well, I think he was also very close already in first one in the first race behind me. And it was like, okay, I knew he's quick, so as soon as he got alongside me, I thought, okay, let him go, take a slipstream and try to pull away from the other Evo drivers that are waiting behind. And then he had a crash in, I think it was the last corner. I think he went into a little too deep. Which, okay, which brought me back in the lead again. I was very happy about that. But then Scott was indeed very, very close behind me. And at one point, I thought he was also preserving his lead as well in the Premier class, because he was not really getting too close. But I made a little mistake in turn 1 at one point, braking a little bit too late, and got got on the inside of turn 2 and got a slowdown, which was, I was like, oh come on, why make that silly mistake? That put me right back with the other Evo drivers, but managed to stay out of trouble, luckily.
Well, you managed to dodge the trouble, like you say, and had you done the maths to know that you didn't need to beat Andre, nor did you need to worry about Roll Turf Cure getting ahead of you, or was it one of those things where you sort of figured to yourself, no, I've got to beat them because I might lose the championship?
No, I already did the maths before the race, and I saw like, okay, 35 points, so if I get P4 boat race, then I should be fine. And then like the first one, that was P3, so I knew I had a 25 point gap going into the second race, so it was just like, okay, I'm in front of him now. If I finish one place behind him, doesn't matter, I will still win the championship. Luckily, it helps that I'm an accounting in that way, doing the calculations.
Oh, brilliant. Well, had all the points in your mind, so therefore you didn't have to worry too much, and also ending on an ultimate high, not just a second place, so therefore a double Evo podium, but a third place overall. I believe your first overall podium of the season as well.
Yeah, definitely from the season, I think, yeah, if I'm not mistaken. It was very surprising to be that high up in the grid, and also being able to, I mean, planning a pole is one thing, but also staying there, knowing there's a lot of faster drivers behind you, was a challenge, and I was surprised that could keep up that well, to be honest, at the front of the grid.
Well, you did a superb job keeping up at the front of the grid, but now, I guess, looking ahead to the future, I mean, becoming our Evo champion means that, naturally, you've now got to be thinking about moving up to the Premier class. Can we expect you back on the grid for Season 9 to move up a class?
Yes, we will definitely be in the Premier class next season.
Oh, fantastic. We definitely look forward to you taking on the Premier class. And will you be back in the Ferrari, or will it be a different machine?
Ferrari has been my go-to car pretty much all along in iRacing, so I guess I will be sticking to the Ferrari. Although it's maybe not the best in the wet, but it's the car I'm most used to, and I really love the car, so no point in changing it.
Oh, true. If it's not broken, don't fix it, they say, and I'm loving your mentality. Yeah. Well, Wesley, just before I do let you go, is there anywhere you'd like to give a shout-out or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
I really like to thank my team as well, from our age with Fretty and James Pellet. Not been there all season. I just looked at the standings and we just missed out on the Teams Championship by 6 points, unfortunately. But that was really close, apparently. Closer than I thought it would be after winning the championship as well last season with the teams. And I also would like to thank my own team that we raced for 9PP. With Bruma in particular, because he's been a long mate of me and always supported me, and will also be on the grid next season again. So looking forward to that.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we look forward to seeing you back on the grid next season. We also look forward to seeing Bruma or Bruma Gaming, the YouTube chat, on the grid. But Wesley, on the behalf of the Evolution Sim Racing broadcast team and everyone tuning in, allow me to say once again, congratulations on becoming our provisional Season 8 Evo champion. Well deserved, a great end to your season, and we look forward to plenty more in Season 9. But until then, my friend, have a fantastic rest of your evening. You deserve it.
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
So hearing there from absolutely ecstatic Wesley Remrens, you can hear it in his voice. He's finally done it. He's made it happen after multiple attempts at trying. And, well, the team may not have quite got the Teams Championship. They finished third, only 6 points behind. More on that a bit later when we give you the update on the standings. But he pulled it off today. Clinical, he knew the points he needed to score coming into today. He knew the margins. And the surprise, the only surprise, qualifying. A 19th place qualifying position, 4th on the grid. And then there was a big gap between himself and his main rival, Andre Montin. And in the end had to make his way through. But he took his time, he picked his way up the order, and in doing so, he absolutely nailed it. No doubt about it. And, well, played it smart, made sure not to get caught up in these silly battles, and this has been a mature championship from him all the way through and through. And, well, I was going to ask him whether he's applied that approach all the way through the season, but I think he just wants to get away and celebrate. And to be fair, you can completely understand the fact that he's absolutely pulled it off, and also he wants to take a breather. And, well, what a season from the Racing League Hub driver. But, of course, he does step up into Premier next season. We'll see him back on the grid in Split B, but he'll be up against the bigger boys on the grid. And can he continue that momentum forward in the Ferrari that he absolutely loves, and it's his go-to car? Something tells me he's definitely going to make a big impact as of Season 9 in the Premier class. But that was our Evo champion, Wesley Van Rens. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we would cut to our next interview in the running order at this point. However, we should point out that we do have now a bit of an excursion in terms of an interview, because we are going to be bringing in Ricardo Luiz Pereira, our Premier champion, and give us a brief moment, and we will bring him into the interview room, and we're going to be hearing from him very shortly. Give us one moment or two, because we are just getting a patch through to him at the moment. And we're just getting things sorted out there in the background. And in fact, I believe we are good to go. So without further ado, let's bring our Premier champion into the interview room. Good evening to you, Ricardo. It may not have been the final round you wanted, or I've heard you've had some force feedback issues, but it definitely has been a season you've wanted. You are our Premier champion for Season 8. How does it feel?
Hello, Paul. Very good evening. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Yeah, unfortunately, tonight was not a good night with some force feedback problems. I was feeling quite confident with the car and the track, but after the qualifying session and also after the warm-up, so when we were on the grid, the force feedback just died and was not able to start the race. And yeah, I had just to pull over and then restart the iRacing session to get it back. Well, it was a bit of bad luck, but that's life.
Oh, indeed. Sometimes bad luck strikes when you least expect it. But, I mean, to be fair, not the way anybody wants to honour their championship crown, but you've done all the hard work beforehand. So we won't talk too much about Monza. I do have to ask, coming into this round, given you qualified 6th, were you expecting you were still going to be fighting right at the top, or were you expecting perhaps, you know what, the Acura's not as strong in a straight as some of its rivals, so this might be a round where you're fighting for top 10s instead?
Well, with that 6th place on the qualify, I was quite comfortable to be fighting for the top 5 or even 3. I don't know. But anyway, later on, when I restarted, I was able to make the fastest lap of the race for 2 or 3 tenths. So I think I have the pace to fight for maybe a podium. But you know, Monza is always a difficult guess because T1 sometimes kills some guys, and I could be that guy at any time on the first lap or on the second lap on a fight. So we never know. But yeah, I think the rhythm was there. We could fight for something better than this and to fish with a better performance than on the bottom of the table. But well, that's life. It happens. And luckily, we had the best part of the job done before, and was not need to be sweating on the last round. That's the most important part.
Oh, very true. And looking at your wider championship season, you wrapped it up last time out at Monza. Are there any rounds that, well, let me just say first, it was well done on taking all of the feature race wins this season. I mean, that's a strange statistic. I don't think we've had anybody in Evolution Sim Racing who's done that previously, at least in Split B. How does it feel to be the king of the 60-minute races this season?
Yeah, I mean, I was investing. I'm not very good on qualifying sessions, so sometimes I struggle a bit with that. I prefer to settle down and have a better established and a better race pace, and races with 1 hour. That's what I feel more comfortable. So maybe that's a bit of an explanation of that domination on the feature races. But yeah, the strategy was a bit to be standing and be more careful on the 30-minute races because they are more risky. They have more carnages. People risk more on the fights. So I was trying to be more conservative on those races. Just try to finish in the top 10 and to invest more on future races.
Well, that approach definitely paid off for you. A great set of results across the board in the feature races, and even bringing home a win in the sprint last time out in the wet weather. But look into the season as a whole, is there a particular round or moment that will always stand out to you as your highlight of the season?
Yeah, I think that's Portimao. Portimao is my track, my home. I love that track, so it's always a big pleasure to drive there. Yeah, definitely Portimao was the top of the season for me.
Well, completely understandable. Home circuit, home domination, and what around it was at Portimao. And of course, looking ahead now to Season 9, as our Premier Champion, it's only right you're promoted to Pro, so you move up a class, you go to Split A. Can we expect you back on the grid in Season 9, ready to take the fight to the bigger boys?
Sure. I'm already on Season 9, Split A, Pro grid, on a new team as well, so trying to improve and to learn with these new guys. So let's see what will gonna happen. Let's see if I have pace to stay with them. Yeah, we're gonna see. It's another level, another learning curve. So I'll give my best for this one. Hopefully, I can be good enough to race with these guys, because for sure they have an even better pace. So let's see. But it's a good sign.
Oh, indeed. Well, all signs are pointing upwards and positive for yourself. No doubt about it, Ricardo. We're going to miss seeing you in Split B because you've been an absolute pleasure to watch race from round to round over the season. But it's only right you do move on to even higher pastures. But just before we do let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Of course, I want to thank James Bostock and you, Paul, for this amazing organization and for these great transmissions. You guys are top class on this, so I have to have a big thumbs up on you guys. And next to my wife, because she allowed me to train some days for some of these races. It's always a good pleasure to participate on very good championships like this.
Well, I'm sure your missus will be very grateful for the shout out, and we're very grateful for your special mention to both myself and James. But we need to also say a big thank you to yourself, Ricardo, not just for joining me for an interview this evening, despite it not going right, but for putting on a stellar set of rounds all the way through the season. And may I say, congratulations once again on becoming our Premier Champion for Season 8. Well deserved. We look forward to seeing what you can do in Pro. But until then, my friend, have a great rest of your evening and upwards and onwards to Season 9.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you. Big thumbs up. You have a good evening. Thank you.
You too. So hearing it there, ladies and gentlemen, from a very happy, but I think also a little bit of a bittersweet, frustrated Ricardo Luiz Pereira, given the fact technology did not go quite right today, and well, after getting those issues resolved, he knew he had the pace today in order to be able to go on the hunt for potentially glory, given the fact he put the fastest lap of the race in the second race after he got everything sorted, as we do see the pictures here of his Acura storming around Monza. But it didn't go quite right, but he'd already got the job done, as he said, in the previous round, so therefore all the pressure was off. But that goes to show you just how strong the Vulcan Motorsport Silver driver has been all season, and well, that unique statistic of taking all the feature race wins and only one sprint race win, which happened at Imola in race number 2 last week. And mentioning there the fact he struggles with qualifying, shorter races as well, so he does prefer the strategy and the bigger picture style races, and that has been his strength. He's been one of those drivers who's just naturally dug out results, and in the Pro class in Split A, that's only going to become more and more important as the pace level rises. Sometimes if you haven't got the pace, you've got to be able to match it with the consistency, and Ricardo Luiz Pereira, if he hasn't been the fastest driver from round to round, he has been the most consistent at the front, and that's why he is your deserved Premier Class champion, and we wish him all the best of luck when he goes to the Pro class in Season 9. But now, ladies and gentlemen, we must come back to our regularly scheduled set of interviews, because we've heard from our champions there, and a big thank you to Ricardo for jumping in there, and also a big thank you to our other 3 interviews for being patient. But now it is time to hear from our second Premier driver for the interviews this evening, and we're going to be hearing from none other than James Howarth as he gets ready to join me. And in fact, here he is now, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening to you, James, and well, a season finale to end on a somewhat positive note, albeit Race 2 didn't quite work out, but qualifying in race number 1, you did the exact job you wanted to. You took pole, and you took victory, despite everybody crawling all over you like a pack of seagulls trying to steal your chips.
Yeah, I'm really pleased with the pace I had all round. Obviously P1 in qualifying. Had to set the pace really early on. Really close battles, and took that into the race. Race 2, obviously middle of the pack, and then me and Victor decided to continue our battle from race 1. He went deep into turn 1 and just parked it on the apex, which made me spin. So really unfortunate. But
Well, a bit of misfortune striking there in race number 2, but talking about some more positives, obviously your season has been a mixture of ups and downs at certain points. From the 3rd place in our opening race at Watkins Glen, and then the 15th place that followed straight after it, we saw similar midway through the season, and indeed last time out at Imola, Mustang's just not on the pace. But here you came into today looking to end on a high, and I can imagine all the practice that had gone in today was particularly to make sure you were right at the front at a circuit where the Mustang naturally goes quite strong.
to be honest, mate, I haven't really practiced Monza. I've been getting set for the Nürburgring 24 this weekend, so I've felt reasonably confident since Tuesday's practice race. I knew I was already on pace. It was just trying to be consistent and basically trying to stay out of the trouble in race 1. But unfortunately, race 2 wasn't the best.
Well, it wasn't quite the best in race number 2, but what was absolutely thrilling was you trying to fight as hard as possible in race 1 to hold on. I mean, what was your strategy to that? Because we did see Peter Duke get ahead of you at one point, then he fell behind after a mistake. You took back the lead, and then you had all the pack breathing down your neck lap after lap until they all started fighting over each other, and they just let you walk away with it a little bit.
Yeah, the reason Pete overtook me was because I had a slowdown from the second chicane, so I had to serve that, and then I had another slowdown in the exact same place a few laps later, so that really cost me the time, but I managed to keep my head and basically drive like I stole it and set the pace and get the victory.
Oh, most definitely. Like you say, you drove it like you stole it, and you ran away and stole the win. Now, race 2, like you say, a bit of a disappointing bookend to the race and the season. So let's not perhaps dwell too much on race 2. Instead, let's talk about something more positive. Looking back on your season, I mean, you've had the win in race 1 this evening, but are there any other highlights that are going to stay with you walking away from season 8?
Just the sheer pace of the drivers, the competitiveness of this league. I had to put some serious practice in that I don't normally do. Yes, I have picked somewhat of a strong car, but obviously in the wet it's just a nightmare to drive. But speaking of last week at Imola, I figured out I had a Bathurst wet setup on, so that's why I was really struggling last week. So that was pretty much on my end. I reckon I could have got a bit more out of the championship, but obviously due to being on holiday, I missed 2 races, which really affected it. But I've done most I can, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Well, that's what it's all about, to be fair. And still, despite missing 2 rounds, 7th in the championship, only 3 points off of Peter Duke, who finished 6th. That's not a bad performance. It just goes to show how strong you have come on. And, well, the Bathurst setup there will excuse that one from Imola. Those things happen. But now looking ahead to season 9, the first question naturally is, can we expect you to be back on the grid fighting for Mustang glory in season 9?
You can, but I'm unfortunately moved up to pro. So I have to put the more practice in and see where my pace is at in and around the aliens that I always talk about. So, and obviously with the new tyre model and the aerodynamics being implemented next season, it is going to be a literally trial and test area, see which car I feel comfortable in. But I'm going to probably edge towards the Mustang still, unless the Aston Martin comes up.
Oh, absolutely fair there, where you would be swapping at one V8 out for another, albeit with the introduction of some turbo as well. But we look forward to seeing what your car choice is in Season 9, and also that new model, like you say, getting to grips with it, and a big reset for everybody. Perhaps something we haven't talked about as much on the broadcast day as we should have. But just before I do let you go, James, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Yourself for an outstanding 10 rounds of commentary. I always watch it. I always sit down with the missus. On the weekends when I go and see her, we always watch it and we always talk about it. So a big well done to you. James Bostock and the team for running this amazing league. Can't fault it. My DXT team. And obviously the girlfriend who always supported me throughout the streams. My personal stream as well as the broadcast stream. So can't fault it.
Well, James, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview room multiple times this season and in our season finale as well. Well done on that great pole position plus the race 1 win. Whilst race 2 wasn't the way you wanted to end the season, still a great end to the season on the whole, despite the rounds missed, and a well-deserved 7th place. We look forward to seeing you up in the pro class in Split A as of season 9. We'll miss you here in Split B. I'll definitely miss you in our conversations, but still, you're rising higher in the ranks, and we look forward to seeing how you get on there. But until then, my friend, have a great rest of your evening, and we'll see you again soon.
Yeah, you too, mate. Goodbye.
So hearing there from James Howarth, as we do see the car parked up there in the gravel after that incident, which was a gutting end to his season, albeit he was able to get racing once again, but not the way he wanted it to go. And hearing there from James Howarth the fact that moving up to pro next season, not knowing what car to go with, given the fact that it will be the big reset that's coming with the new tyre model, the new aero model for the GT3, so everybody will be going in blind and needing to practice, and they might be moving away from their cars. He's thinking of sticking with the Mustang, unless the Aston Martin arrives on the scene, the Vantage Evo GT3, of course, but we will see. But also talking about there, and despite missing a couple of rounds, a 7th place in the championship, happy with how he's performed. Could have been some more points on the board at certain rounds. However, he gave it his all. And if it weren't for the incorrect setup last time out at Imola, putting a Bathurst setup on instead of the Imola setup, well, who knows what it could have been. Well, one thing we do know it's been a good season for the DXT Motorsports driver, and we look forward to plenty more from him in Season 9, and we'll be looking to take the fight even higher up the field. But now coming to our next interview, ladies and gentlemen, well, we've heard from 3 of our interviews. We've now got a 4th on the horizon, and we're going to be hearing from none other than our Evo class run-up, and that's going to be Andre Montine as we continue our way for our interviewees. And let's get ready to hear from the Z-Axis Sim Sports driver who really has surprised everybody this season by sneaking his way up the running order. Well, he now joins me in at the interview room. Good evening to you, Andre. And well, it may not have been quite enough to take the title away from Wesley, but 2nd place in the championship, a late charge in the second half of the season, and today you were absolutely unstoppable. Pole position in class, victory in race number 1, victory in race number 2 in class, and almost victory overall. Settling for 2nd overall, but you came very close. I mean, what a way to end your season.
Yeah, I couldn't really think of a better way to finish the race. Did all I could to try and close the championship gap, but unfortunately so did Wesley to maintain it. So a bit gutting to lose it, but at the end of the day, if I just was a bit more consistent in the start with similar pace as I had now, who knows what might have happened. Good race overall. Was very close to winning, and then me and Scott had a bit of a kerfuffle over the finish line, but luckily we both kept position. So yeah, an exciting end to the season overall. What could have been, really?
Oh, 100%. I mean, looking back at the results, like you say, you start off the season, the first 5 races, I mean, the highest finish was 4th, but most finishes were 10th or lower. And then from race number 6 onwards, just a solid run of top 10 finishes, and most of them, in fact, top 5, if not on the podium. What happened midway through the season? Did something click, or was it just luck's come your way? Take us through it.
I think a bit of both, really. I also started getting into more tracks that I was a bit more familiar with. There was quite a few in the beginning of the season that I'd just never driven before. So that didn't really help. And I think I started tweaking the setups a bit more. Because in the first couple of races, I was really struggled getting like the car to turn in how I wanted it to turn in. And then I started to tweak with that a bit, tweak with my own pedals and stuff in my room just to get a bit more comfortable in the car. and I think it's just been slowly catching me back up as well. Had a bit more time to practice as well. I think for this race we did the most practice together. We actually put together a session as a team to try and get as much pace as we can before it, to try and close down the gap in both the constructors and the teams. So yeah, I think I kind of blew it in the first pre-season race really, because I had an overall win in that, and then just kind of went downhill from there. So I was a bit gutted by that my best result of the season just didn't count. But it is what it is. Yeah.
Oh, indeed. Sometimes that's the way it goes, but it's a sign of things to come. And, well, we definitely saw some huge improvements for yourself over the season, like you say. And when you look back on this season, I mean, you've had a phenomenal day today. Surely Monza's got to be a highlight, but are there any other moments which will stand out in your mind from Season 8 as this was the time where it went really well, or this is where the switch flicked and it all started to come together?
Honestly, I think it's just got to be Monza's the highlight. Just absolutely dominated in Evo and then nearly brought it back home to be one of the only Evo drivers to win overall, if not the only one. I think Kota was a good race. I didn't really enjoy driving it, but I think it was a good result for me overall. So I can't really complain with it. And I think just as soon as I started making those setup changes, I started just feeling so much better in the car. And I was like, oh, okay, I can finally start pushing now. When we started closing on RDSA and the constructors as well, that's when I kind of started getting more motivated to try and just practice a little bit more, to try and squeeze down the gap as much as we could and try and get that constructor win overall. But yeah.
Well, indeed. That motivation coming from the Teams Championship chase just as much as your own. And I also have to ask, with the Acura, I mean, it's been quite a popular car this season. Is it a car that you're thinking of sticking with in future seasons? Is it a car that you perhaps become much more comfortable with now? Because I know for some, it's been a car that's been a tough car to get used to.
Yeah, I think now after these races where I've gotten back more comfortable in it, I think it's definitely much more of a contender than it was a couple of races ago. At the moment, the Corvette as well is quite a leading contender for next season, just like the way it drives, really. It's also the only GT3 I've really driven. I started iRacing not long before season 7, was it? Or yeah, it was season 8 now, so it was season 7. And then the Acura came out then, so I went, I'll just go in this car. If I do badly, I can just say, oh, it's a new car, so I don't really know and not much setups. And then that's pretty much all I've driven GT3-wise. BMW as well, I'm kind of hoping that the new tyre model and whatnot brings it back in a bit, because I really enjoy driving that car, but it just doesn't have any pace, sadly. So I'll just have to see. Porsche passes the mind, it's a good, safe car. Everyone does really well in it, but I just don't like the feel of it. It's just a bit too snappy. I like the car to be pointy, but then the Porsche is kind of it points and then it points too much and then it kind of just kills you. So I'll really, after the new update comes out, I'll have to just try most of the GT3s and see how it goes, really.
Oh, indeed. Well, you have to try a little bit of everything. Like they say, it's going to be the grand reset, but that's in the future. And, well, speaking of the future, we can expect you then back on the grid in Season 9, but will you be do you know whether you're competing for Evo Honours again or whether you'll be stepping up to Premier?
Yeah, I've committed to Premier now for this upcoming season. I was, at the start of this season, on the fence with it. As you know, it was a bit of a mess up at pre-season, then took until Kota for everything to be updated to meet back down to Evo.
Yeah.
So I've committed to Premier for next season. I think if I can carry this form forward, I'll be able to get to good results in that as well. So we'll see what it brings and also what the field for next season is going to be like, because that's very important as well.
Oh, 100% with you on that. Well, the fact that you've chosen to make that step up, we definitely look forward to seeing you take it on the Premier Class field. And just before I do let you go, Andre, I mean, runner-up this season, you've mentioned already about working with the team, but are there anybody else that you'd like to give a thank you or a shout-out to live on the broadcast this evening?
Just Grant Miller, Roll Turfgear, Wesley Van Ren's absolute insane fight over the whole season. It was very fun racing with them, and pretty much everyone in B-Split really. We just had a lot of really good fights and never really had any, me personally at least, never really had any moments where I had any arguments with anyone, just mostly racing incidents and stuff. And I gotta say, for Mathew Croft, quite unlucky today. He was from a back of the grid start to leading the second race and then just disconnect in the middle of it really got, and he was very gutted by it. So hopefully he can get himself back up. I know he'll be missing season 9 because he's moving house. So hopefully in season 10 he can come back ever stronger and fight for the championship again.
Well, if Matthew is listening right now, I'm with you on that 100%, Andre. Matthew, don't give up. Come back in season 10 after the house move. Hope that all goes well. And we want to see you back out there giving it your all, because we know that a championship crowd could be coming your way at some point. Well, it's been a fantastic season for him. It's been an absolutely beautiful season for yourself, Andre. And as our runner-up in Evo, I just want to say once again, congratulations on a phenomenal second half of the season. Really a dominant second half compared to some of your rivals. We look forward to seeing you in Premier in season 9 and what you can do then. But until then, thank you for joining me in the interview, my friend, and have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you, and well done on your broadcast as well. Very good for the whole season.
Thank you. So hearing it there from Andre Montine, ladies and gentlemen, and well, I can tell the happiness in him. I love the attitude he brought to that interview, and the fact you can hear the positivity. He's had a phenomenal end to the season, and tonight he's just been in top form. It wasn't as though he ran away with it, and we see the pictures here where 1 point chasing after Wesley Van Rens, also enrolled at Turf Cure behind him. But the point being, it all came together, and mentioning as the season went on, the level of practice, the level of understanding of the car starting to improve more and more, and the belief not just in himself but the team at Z-Axis Sim Sports that they could chase down the team's championship. Well, it all moulded together, everything clicked. And they're also talking about the fact that earlier on the season at the Circuit of the Americas, where results came his way, one of his strongest rounds there as well. In fact, not a circuit he enjoyed, but a circuit where he got the results he wanted with that superb drive to be on the podium. I think even to take victory, if my memory serves me correctly. So it's been a phenomenal second half of the season for the Z-Axis Sim Sports driver, and I think he's making the right call moving up to Premier, because if he was in Evo, I think he would be one of the favourites for Evo. But I think already what he's shown at the end of the season is that the pace is there in Premier, and he will be a big name to fight, because this evening, if things had gone slightly differently, he could have been an overall winner after the top 15 in reverse grid, and he would have earned that outright. But in the end, Scott Kostrich made sure that wasn't to happen by doing an absolutely brilliant job of keeping him one step behind, albeit their altercation across the line there, well, they both held their position, so I don't think they're going to have any qualms about it, but it is what it is. But one thing that is also the way it is that Andrew Montine is on the rise and one to watch out for in Season 9. But now, ladies and gentlemen, coming to our final interview of this evening, a fifth interview. Goodness me, we've had plenty of interviews here, and we are about to stop. However, we've got to speak to one more Evo class driver, because it's only fair in the fact that the Evo guys deserve as much attention as our Premier guys out there. We always love hearing from people up and down the grid. Let's hear from none other than Matthew Hunter, who now joins me in the interview room. Good evening to you, Matthew. And, well, an end of the season that perhaps wasn't the way you wanted it to end. I think some of the results perhaps didn't go the way you wanted to, but still a fun end to the season in a Ferrari on its home soil, and you gave it your all out there for Simcast Racing UK.
Fun's the right word there. It's, those last two races, honestly, we were talking before we started that, the main goal was to help Chris consolidate second, and we really wanted to sort of maintain a top 10 in the championship for a team that we didn't exist really in this guise before Bathurst this year. So and to do these two races, going around incredibly nervously, just trying to think, don't get into battles I don't need to get into and that sort of thing. So it's and then I did get into battles anyway, because unfortunately that's how I drive. But no, it's been a lot of fun. And it's been an up and down season as well, which is to be expected coming in halfway through. But it's been brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, it's been brilliant having you on the grid, bolstering the already fantastic Simcast Racing UK teams. Oh, goodness me, roster. That's the word. I finally found that word at long last. I mean, coming in midway through then, what was the focus for yourself? Was it just to jump into the Evo class and try and gel? Did you set yourself any targets? Just take us through that, because a lot of drivers we've spoken to have been in the season since the start. But when you're coming halfway through, some feel a bit alienated from the grid, or some have a very different perspective on the season.
I mean, for me, it's the first organised racing I've done for nearly 10 years. That wasn't in a series I ran. So there was that. So I had the nerves from that, to be honest with you. I've been working with the guys behind the scenes since they started anyway, which has been great. So I've been sort of like doing some private testing, getting used to the car myself. But I didn't want any targets for myself. I literally just wanted to come in, get used to the series, work out, understand how it works, how the guys around me are going to work, get to know some of the other people on the grid, and understand what it's going to be like to race with them. But then obviously we had a couple of good results at Road Atlanta, which is ideal. Not such good result at Sebring, and that's fine. And then Imola and here have been kind of what I expected. So I just wanted, ultimately I just wanted to not finish last, and I wanted to be on the first page of the timing screen, and I've achieved all those things. So I'm considering it job done for this half season, to be honest with you.
Oh, fair play to you. I love the targets, the way you've achieved that, and all the way through as well. I mean, the team's all about the Ferrari this season. Is that what it's going to be next season, with the grand reset coming with the new aero model and tyre model, or are there already talks about potentially moving away or seeing what can be experimented on?
So, I mean, we had been discussing evaluating a few different models before we realised how quickly Season 9 was coming around. And to be honest, we all seem we're all pretty similar guys when it comes to the sort of cars that we have, the taste that we have. And the general consensus was even though we weren't sure about the Ferrari when we first started, we've all kind of fallen in love with it a bit. So we are, the plan is to stick with the 296 for next season. We're bringing in another one as well, with Jordan May joining us, which is fantastic. So there'll be 4 in the series. Hopefully, going to bring in a 5th for our current spotter and engineer Stephen Wilkinson should be joining the grid in one of the other series, hopefully as well. Yeah, we're going all out next season. We've well over achieved what we expected, so we want to keep building on this.
Oh, that's fantastic to hear. And speaking of keep building on things, coming a little bit more back to your own results. I mean, taking a look for our statistics here, unless I'm mistaken, your finest results of the season coming with the 7th place finish at Road Atlanta. A real stand-up performance there. And also the back-to-back 8th place finishes last time out at Imola. So you've had some great top 10s out there. I mean, are those the results that are going to stay in your mind, or are there other results that stay in your mind from over the course of this season?
I mean, Road Atlanta will, for the emotional reasons, we won't go into that again. I appreciate the coverage that got when we put the stuff on the car for that. Imola was a massive surprise for me, to be honest, because it's I've not raced in the wet. So doing that in anger at a circuit I absolutely adore was brilliant. I think I was calling it Richard Burns endurance racing after that one. I spent more time opposite lock into various corners than I cared to think, but it was so much fun, and I came away after a horrendous race at Sebring to come away from Imola with 2.8s. I was over the moon. I was absolutely buzzing after that one. So it's that sort of thing that motivates me to keep to sort of see, well, this is what I can achieve with what I've got now. So it's just a case of building on it, and buzzing for next season already.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I could hear it in your voice, you're absolutely buzzing. So I presume you're back in the Evo class, and this time when you go onto the grid, you'll be targeting top 5, something tells me?
That's the goal. Obviously we'll have a bit more data behind us as to how the car behaves with certain track conditions and whatnot. Obviously, looking at the Season 9 calendar, I love that calendar so much already. There's only one circuit I'm not a massive fan of. The rest of Brands Hatch is going to be amazing. I can't wait for that. In particular, that's going to be epic. But yeah, it's I'm hitting 8s now. Top 5s would be awesome. I think the guys behind the scenes kind of worked out if I'd done a full season kind of doing what I was doing now, I'd have been in and around the top 10 of the championship, which would have been phenomenal. So just doing that off a half a season, I'm very happy, very, very happy.
Oh, you deserve to be, and we look forward to a full season from yourself in Season 9 and what you can achieve there, going for those results, no doubt about it. But we'll almost leave it there, because just before we do, Mathew, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout-out or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
I mean, obviously goes without saying, massive thank you to everyone behind the scenes at Simcast Racing Team UK. Chris, phenomenal season. Ross, you know, epic job. Ellie, Steve, everyone. Adam, Jordan coming in as well, and obviously the US guys as well. And to be honest, I don't know whether many people say this, but I have to say my incredible wife, Steph, she's been phenomenally supportive of my ridiculous hobbies. And you know, I genuinely couldn't do it without her. So yeah, massive thank you to everybody who gets us on the grid and keeps us motivated week in, week out.
Oh, fantastic. Well, it sounds like a huge community within the Simcast Racing UK banner, but also within your family as well. All that support. I mean, it means a lot, I know, from driver to driver to have all that back in, and I can hear it in your voice how much it means to you. But with that, Mathew, it's been a pleasure having you join me in the interview. But congratulations once again on a great half a season and what you've been able to achieve in that time. We look forward to plenty more in Season 9 when you're on the grid for the full championship calendar. And upwards and onwards, my friend, we look forward to seeing you chase those results in Evo class. But until then, have a great rest of your evening. So hearing there from Mathew Hunter, ladies and gentlemen, a very happy Evo driver, and well pleased his target for this season just to make sure he finished on the first standings results page within the top 20, and doing exactly that in multiple rounds overall and in class. And well, coming away from here today with a Ferrari that definitely enjoyed a good few scraps out there, no doubt about it, even though he said he was planning to stay out of trouble. In the end, finding himself getting into the thick of it, but normally that's where he likes to be. And also talking a little bit there about the fact that there are plenty more data going into Season 9. It will be a season whereby everybody will have that grand reset. We keep talking about it with the changed tyre model, but it looks like the whole team at Simcast Racing UK very comfortable with the Ferrari, and well, they might be sticking to it once they've got the data behind it, and that's going to be interesting because the team have come alive as this season has gone on, and they're going to be reinforced with even more members going into Season 9, so therefore it's going to be an exciting time ahead. And for this man who'll be targeting top 5 finishes, well, given the fact his best performance of the season was a very emotional 7th place in Evo class at Road Atlanta, where you have to imagine if he can start putting off top 5s, he'll start to believe podiums could also be the dream, and very quickly that dream will become a reality. But that's the story of Mathew Hunter, and we will continue with a new chapter in the book going into Season 9 in a few weeks' time. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that brings our interviews to a close. And a big thank you to all of our interviewees this evening. We've had a bumper edition of interviews. I know we've gone a bit longer than expected, but I appreciate your patience, and I think you've all enjoyed it. We've heard from our Evo Class champion, Wesley Van Rens Racing League Hub. We also heard in the interim from our Premier Class champion, Ricardo Luiz Pereira for Vulcan Motorsports Silver. We then came to James Howard for DXT Motorsports in the Premier Class, and then we returned to the Evo bumper edition by speaking to our class runner-up in the championship, Andrew Montine for ZXT Sim Sports. And we just heard from our 17th place finisher in the championship, but only a half-season participant. Evo class is Simcast Racing UK, Mathew Hunter. A big thank you to all 5 of our interviews, and there will be plenty more interviews in seasons to come, no doubt about it, as we try to get the story from every driver up and down the grid. Whether they have a great day or a bad day, they all deserve to have their story heard. But a big thank you and congratulations to all of our drivers there. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, of course, now it is time for us to start thinking about wrapping up. But first, we must come to our final championship stands, the provisional one subject to any stewards' inquiries. And after 10 rounds of racing in the Drivers' Championship for the Premier Class, Ricardo Luiz Pereira emerges from today your victor for Vulcan Motorsport Silver. He was already crowned elect coming out of round number 9, but there is the confirmation. Despite a dismal day today, it didn't quite work out for him due to those issues, but still, a well-deserved championship crown. His consistency absolutely infallible. Second place in the end did go to Christopher Starsmore for Simcast Racing UK. A great achievement from him. At one point oscillating around the battle from 5th to 3rd, but then becoming a major contender midway through the season. It really came alive at the midway point. Not quite having enough in the tank to beat our dominant Acura driver, but still the Ferrari driver able to finish second. With Nick Stubbe taking 3rd for Vulcan Fastest by Glass Tip Racing, only in the end 34 4 points behind with that great run from the midway point of the season all the way through to conclusion with multiple sprint race wins to his name and podiums throughout. And then we did see the misfortune for Mathew Croft strike again tonight, and the ZX Sim Sports driver having to take 4th in the championship in the end, not the way he wanted it to. And when he's back on the grid in season 10, you can imagine he is going to be all fired up and he'll be looking to make that crown his. John Ludbrook, 5th for Kame GP2 Porsche, a great end to his season, wrapping off the top 5 ahead of Peter Duke for DDK Racing Team P, who just outpaced James Howarth by 3 points to that 6th place position. But the DXT Motorsports driver won't be too upset about that because he enjoyed a great scrap throughout the season. And James Bostock as well, well done to him, only 1 podium over the season when there could have been multiple. Indeed, many may remember that huge heartbreak at Algarve where it was all looking to be a podium until it came crashing to a halt with only 5 minutes to go. But still, with only 1 podium and a whole variety of results, to be 8th in the championship with such a tight field, it's good going from him, no doubt about it. Scott Kostrich, his teammate, with that win in the final race of the day, only 3 points behind him at the close, but promoting himself clearly ahead of Robin Aston for the Suma GP2 Porsche team, who completed the Premier Top 10. In 11th, best of rest, Jan Osberg for Nifels at Glass Tech Racing, and just not his season. Every time he's inside the top 5, something struck. Bad luck, an instant, you name it, it ended up going wrong. And I do hope in season 9, presuming he's back on the grid, I hope he is. I hope we get to see a season where we get to see the full potential of Jan Osberg, because I can imagine if he doesn't have bad luck, he is going to be a big threat for a top 5, if not the top 3 in the championship. And Adam Baker, last but not least, sneaks his way back into the top 12 for Ellis Racing B, with that 2nd place in the final race of the day, just moving him ahead of his rivals. And what a job from him. Go into the Evo class, meanwhile. Well, here we can see the complexion. And Wesley Van Rens, in the end, sealing the deal with 35 points to his advantage for Racing League Hub, head of Andrew Montine for ZX Sim Sports. But a championship campaign where Wesley Van Rens started off incredibly strong. It all then started to fall away a little bit in rounds 3 through to 6, for him then to shore things back up and get things back on track, albeit having some fortune come his way. And Imola last time out already being around whereby damage control had to be at its maximum. Whereas Andrew Montine, if it had better results in the first half of the season, you heard it from him earlier, what could have been, but still, he improved in the midway point of the season from Circuit of the Americas onwards, and that consistency is what puts him in the title hunt. Grant Miller, having to settle for 3rd in the end for Phoenix Racing, not his way to end the season with race number 2 today. But still, credit where it's due, he did put on a great performance, and we will always remember those great results in the opening rounds of the season, particularly for races 4 and 5 of the calendar, when he really came alive and took his only 2 wins of the season, but what wins they were. Roll Turf Cure, a further 23 points behind, 4 for MJK Sim Racing B, and you've got to imagine that next season, if he's able to put on a consistent campaign whereby he doesn't finish outside the top 10, could he be a new Evo champion? Because he's definitely been under the radar and suddenly emerged onto it. With Rob Gregg as well, you can't count him out for Moonshiners Racing Club. If things have gone a bit differently for him, could he have been a top 3 finisher? Steve Rubino, well, he had multiple DNFs early on, but the Hobo Racing driver, you've got to think that the American driver there, if it weren't for the DNFs, the wrong setups going on the car in the first half of the season, he definitely would have been a force to be reckoned with regards to that top 3 fight. And we watch his progress with great interest, with Daniel Paul at 7th ahead of Jan Nagy in their fight for the 7th place spot, with it going 38 points the way of Daniel Paul. And there was Sean Clark in 9th, only a further 10 points behind, with Charlie Stoffard with his great mid-season performances, albeit a lot of variance in there. A 10th place finish at the end of the season. I wonder if he can have a more consistent season, could he be a big threat for the top 5? If he can just tone it in a little bit, and that's not to criticise him, but just get those results buried down a little bit and the novel finishes removed, he's definitely one to watch out in a future season of campaigning. Owen Stewart, 11th for DXT Motorsports, and then Gareth Newton completing your Evo standings there in 12th place. Then lastly, going on to the Teams Championship, and here we can see your top 10 provisional, and a provisional, huge congratulations in the end, because look at how close it was come the end of the campaign, ladies and gentlemen. Less than 100 points separating our top 4 teams, and between our top 3, no more than 30 points all the way to the end. And in fact, I think that might be the older results. My apologies there. Let's get the correct results up on screen, and whoa, there's the update there, and goodness me, well, big congratulations to our champions there, Vulcan Motorsports Gold. It was even tighter than it was, I thought, only moments ago, and I do apologise, because Vulcan Motorsports Gold, they're taking the victory by 4 points over RDSA. And well, we did say it, didn't we, going into today? Would we see Vulcan Motorsports Gold suddenly steal away the championship, having never led it once this season? They did it. They absolutely nailed it right at the close, with RDSA Esports missing out by 4 points and a further 2 to Racing League Hub and a further 5 to ZX's Sim Sports. In the end, only, if my maths is correct, 11 points separating the top 4. That's got to be a record here at Evolution Sim Racing for how close the Teams Championship has gone down to the wire. Outside the top 4, Vulcan fastest by Glasstep Racing, really the best of the rest in 5th, a comfortable 100 plus points advantage over Carme GP2 Porsche, and then Phoenix Racing just missing out on 6th place, but still comfortably ahead of Simcast Racing UK, who returned to 8th right at the end of the season, and then Vulcan Motorsport Silver and Moonshiners Racing Club rounding off the Teams Championship. And congratulations to all of our champions, our runners-up, and everyone who competed in the championship. Without them, they wouldn't have made the championship what it is, and a huge well done to everybody involved this season. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now itching to be on the grid for Season 9 or any of our other series, because of course we do have on Thursday evenings the GT3 Championship, which you've tuned into this evening, but on Sundays and alternating weekends we have the European GT Championship, also the Danny Lee GT Omega Porsche Cup. And well, if Porsche Cup is not your fancy, or indeed any of those championships are not your fancy, perhaps you're looking for something free and more casual to join, well, we do of course have our Practice League, which runs on Tuesday evenings and Saturday afternoons. But for all that and more, and to become a part of the Evolution Sim Racing community, which is growing rapidly, and there's never been a better time to be on the grid with us, well, you just need to join the official Discord. Invite link available on screen there, or you can use the QR code. We'd also like to say at the moment, say a big thank you to our series and league sponsors, who do include, of course, our title sponsor for this series, Trophy AI, the Virtual Racing School, VRS, Carme, Modern Technology, and GP2 Group. And also a big thank you to Motorsport UK's esports division for recognising us as a recommended community as we continue our ongoing relationship with Motorsport UK's esports division. But the big question is, what lies in waiting next time then, ladies and gentlemen? Well, we bring the curtain down on Season 8. But in only a couple of weeks' time, we'll be raising the curtain again, because we'll be back for Season 9, which begins on Thursday, the 19th of June, 2025. So only 2 weeks away, and we begin the story of an all-new season campaign with our pre-season round. But many of you may be asking, well, what's in store then for Season 9? Let me know more, let me know more. Well, here we can see then, we are back for plenty more racing. It begins on the 19th of June, and in our 9th installment, an all-new logo, their shiny new logo, absolutely loving that, and I think many will. Well, we will be back, powered by Trophy.ai, but the big question is, what's on the cards? Well, as we can see, 10 championship rounds with our 4 classes, and we will have Split A once again. That will be Elite and Pro. Meanwhile, we'll have Premier and Evo in Split B, and I'm very pleased to say, ladies and gentlemen, I'll be back behind the microphone, bringing you all the racing action as it unfolds in Split B. It's been an absolute pleasure this season, and I look forward to plenty more in Season 9, but enough about me. You want to know what's happening in Season 9, and we will see once again 40 personalised driver trophies to be won, and that will be for your top 3 finishers in each of the classes over the course of the season. Plus, also, you do have trophies for the winning team. So that's how we do get to the 40 trophies. And there will be 2 pace play splits, as you can expect there from our 4 classes, 4 driver classes. Understandable. And we do have multiple Trophy.ai subscriptions to be won alongside our Teams Championship. 120 seats available on the grid. Sign-ups have already... Well, they are still open, but they've already been filled, so it's now a reserve list if you want to be on the grid, and I definitely recommend getting on the reserve list in case the slot does open up, because you won't want to miss being on the grid for season number 9, and all the racing brought to you live via the Split A and Split B broadcast on the YouTube channel. And I do believe you are in the capable hands of Split A of a combination of Joe Glass, Darragh Thacker, and I do believe Chaz Draycott may be making an appearance at some point. Well, we've always got to have a Hall of Famer, Chaz Draycott, coming on back, because it wouldn't be the same without him. But on top of that as well, what about the calendar? Where are we going racing? Because we did hear some of our drivers say it's an absolutely smashing calendar for Season 9. Well, here it is, ladies and gentlemen. The calendar as it stands. And we will begin our pre-season at Okayama in 2 weeks' time. The tight course, the T1 Ida course that used to be known, and one which sees GT World Challenge Asia take to it year in, year out. We head to Daytona, Brands Hatch, Fuji International Speedway, Spa-Francorchamps, the Virginia International Raceway. That'll be the first 5 rounds, plus the pre-season and the championship. And then the second half of the season, with no mid-season break, we've got Mazzano, Magny-Cours, Interlagos, Road America and Silverstone. It really feels as though this is the greatest hits of modern-day GT3 racing. And, well, goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, that's the calendar. And what you may also notice there is that we do end on a feature race 1 hour round, and we do have a lot of sprint race rounds back-to-back in this season. So it's a bit of a medley this season coming in terms of when we've got the sprints and the features. But with a good mix, that's going to make it even more interesting, no doubt about it. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that then brings us to a close. So that's what you've got lying in wait in Season 9. But with our advertisement for the upcoming season complete, well, all that leaves me to say here in the commentary booth is thank you very much for watching this season. If you have enjoyed it, be sure to let us know. And if you're not already subscribed to our YouTube channel, make sure to do so that way you can stay up to date with all our latest broadcasts, season in, year out. But until then, we've been Evolution Sim Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until Season 9, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.
For the upcoming right-hander, brake 30 meters later and ease off the pressure.
Are you spending a lot of time looking for setups and struggling for faster lap times? Are you tired of searching online for answers? Would you like to get setups, analysis and tutorials from some of the best sim racers in the world like Ralph Alla, Mitchell de Jong, Martin Krunker, Josh Rogers and many more? If so, virtualracingschool.com is the answer you've been looking for. VRS data packs provide hot laps from our professional coaches for you to analyse and replicate. They provide tutorials that walk you through the fastest laps and what the pros did to achieve the best times. And they provide the setups you need to ensure your car is competitive in both oval and road racing. If you're ready to get faster and reach more podiums sooner than later, just go to virtualracingschool.com and sign up for a free account today.